Bodies on Grant versus Grant. Step forward, please.
Account executive Robin Grant is in court with her two children, Marie 9 and Robin 11, suing their estranged father, Colden Grant. The kids claim he won't return the possessions they left behind after the divorce.
Order. All rise. Judge, this is number 273 on the calendar in the matter of Grant versus Grant. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have a seat, ma'am.
Tell me your first name.
Robin.
And yours?
Maria.
How old are you, Robin?
11.
Maria?
9.
This is your dad. That's your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk to both of you, because I've read your papers. I'm going to talk to you sort of privately a little bit later. Okay?
Okay.
So what I would like you to do for now is, this is Officer Byrd.
Hello.
He's going to take you into my chambers for a minute to sit down and wait for me, because I want to talk to your mom and dad for a minute.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Good. Miss Grant, would you step up here, please? Mr. and Mrs. Grant, from what I gather from your papers, you were married in 1975.
Correct.
And these are your two girls.
Yes.
You're now divorced.
No.
Pending.
Separated.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And you lived in New York most of your married life, is that right?
Yes. All of our married life was in New York.
When did you separate?
November of 1986.
No, 96.
I'm sorry, 96.
So you were married for 21 years before you separated.
Correct.
And I gather that this separation was not a happy one. They usually are
Wasn't
not.
happy.
But that you left New York, Mrs. Grant. Is
I
that
went
right?
to Hawaii. We resided in Hawaii.
Who resided in Hawaii?
Me and the children.
You left your husband.
Oh, yeah.
Why did you decide to move to Hawaii?
Well, I had family there, and I wanted distance. So
Why did you want distance?
It was a horrible relationship. It became threatening on many levels, and I thought the further, the better.
How did you feel as if that impacted on the children?
It had to be negative and positive. It was positive because it took them out of a very harmful situation.
How harmful, Mrs. Grant?
Very harmful.
Was it a physically abusive relationship?
Oh, yeah.
You say, oh yeah, you say that very mildly.
Yeah, I can say that now because I'm not in danger anymore. Yes, it was.
Was any of this violence in front of the children?
Yes.
Is that right, sir?
No, it's not true.
Well, if I asked your girls whether they ever saw you being physically abusive towards your wife, what do you think they would say?
They would say no.
Okay. Did you get permission from the court to leave the jurisdiction?
Oh, yeah.
I gave permission for the children to
The
leave
courts
with
gave.
her. No, it was my permission that did it.
Why, Mr. Grant, did you give permission for your wife to go so many thousands of miles away with your children?
For my children to go through this, I couldn't let them go through any more court litigation, so it was me that said, let her have full custody and let the children be with her.
Do you have other children, Mr. Grant?
No.
The reason that I'm asking to speak to you first before I speak to the girls is the girls want their things back. That's what this lawsuit is about. I don't know exactly what things they want, and I assume they're going to tell me. But it's always a very sad thing when children are brought into a domestic situation between their parents. There's a saying that always sticks in my mind, Mrs. Grant and Mr. Grant, and that is, you're supposed to love your children more than you hate each other when you separate. Children usually need two parents.
They should do.
If they've estranged themselves for whatever reason, either because one parent encourages it or not, they usually grow up eventually resenting the parent that caused the estrangement, and that could be either one of you. So, Mrs. Grant, I'm going to ask you this question. Let us assume that it was a miserable relationship with your husband. You think it's a good idea that your children should have negative feelings about him?
They're free to have whatever feelings they want to.
Well, you're the custodial parent, Mrs. Grant. So really children are pretty pliable, you know, and they take their lead from whoever is taking care of them.
No, I'm not going to push the children either way. If they have negative feelings or negative thoughts, they can vent those. If they don't, they don't.
Okay. Well, what things do your daughters want from their father?
What they really want are the things from their bedroom, their baby pictures, videos, stamp collections, telescopes, microscopes, things of that nature.
Well, baby pictures and things, he says he wants to keep because he likes to have them. And I can understand that. You can make copies of those and send them to the girls, right?
Yes.
That's an easy. The other things are just things, microscope, stamp collection, those things. You have no problem with returning those to the girls, do you?
No, I have no problem.
But it's the pictures and the videos.
It's the pictures and the videos.
And that's also, in this age of technology, you can make
Also
copies,
duplicate.
keep one for yourself, and then see that the girls get their pictures and stuff so that they also can look at times when they were little and maybe you were all a family and living happily together. All right, I would like to speak to your children. So why don't the two of you have a seat?
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
I'm telling you that he loves you.
You're telling me.
I'm telling you that he
He's
loves you.
not. You're
Is it important for you to hear it from him?
no, because it's a lie.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Robin Grant is suing her ex-husband on behalf of their two children, Marie and Robin, because he won't return their belongings. Colden says he's being prohibited from seeing his children.
Hello, gorgeous girls.
Hello.
I understand you two are very bright. First of all, you're very tall
Yeah.
and very lovely.
Thank you.
So you know who I am, and I want to find out a little bit more about you. I've just had a talk with your mom and your dad. And it's always sad when parents get a divorce, right?
Depending, I don't think it's that sad because they were arguing and everything. So it's not sad that they're not arguing anymore.
To me, it was just about happy.
It's about happy. Why is that?
No more
I don't have to
arguing.
go through a bunch of arguing and screaming and stuff like that.
So there was a lot of that in your house. But my sense is that your mother loves you and your father loves you. You're their only children. What things do you want your dad to give you back?
Well, I want my baby pictures.
Okay, let me tell you what your dad said about your pictures and the videos and stuff. Your dad's going to make copies of all the things because he would like to have them too, to see his children. You're his two children. He doesn't have any other kids. He loves you. And then you have a stamp collection.
Yeah.
Whose stamp collection?
Both of ours.
And he's going to send that back to you.
That's good.
And the telescope, is that what you want?
Yeah.
And your dad said he was going to send that back to you.
That's good.
Okay? So let's take care of that.
And our coin collection.
And your coin collection. Very valuable coin collection?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, my mom traveled like all over the world, and she got different like kinds of dollars from different places and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Well, is it your mom's coin collection or yours?
And she gave it to us.
us.
Well, let me tell you this. It's really your mom's coin collection, if she was collecting it. There are certain things that are yours. There are certain things that may be a problem between your mother and your father. I don't want to get involved with that, and I don't think you ought to get involved with that. All right, so let's finish that. This is over. So let's talk honestly, the two of us, the three of us, two of you and one of me. You live very far away from your father.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you two girls ever witness any time when either of your parents put their hands on each other?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did?
Yep.
Tell me about it.
Well, once my dad tried twisting my mom's arm and stuff, so I stopped him.
Yes. What else?
Well, sometimes we just like get tussling matches sometimes. Tussling matches sometimes.
The two of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Colton's always trying to, like, talk over her and
Yeah.
and stuff, like, you're brainwashing them and stuff like that.
That happens. You know your mom loves you.
Yeah.
So does your father. I think you know that. I'm not so sure that you understand that. He really loves you. You question that?
Yeah.
He loves you.
Well, my true feelings are that I don't really want to be around him anymore.
Why?
The way he acts.
Like what? You have to tell me.
Okay. The way he acts is, like, ignorant.
How?
I can't explain it.
Let's say something to you. You know, the truth of the matter is, ladies, just amongst us three ladies, sometimes guys don't always do the right thing just because they're older. Sometimes parents don't do the right thing, mothers or fathers, even because they're parents. And you two gals are very smart. So in addition to being smart, you should be tolerant. Just because you're a parent doesn't make you perfect. Your father has disappointed you, right? You're supposed to not necessarily accept it and not necessarily understand it, but just say, he's my father. And I know he's made mistakes, but I'm telling you that he loves you.
You're telling me.
I'm telling you that he
He's
loves you.
not. You're telling.
Is it important for you to hear it from him?
No,
No.
because it's a lie.
No, it's not. He loves you. He really loves you. Would you spend a little time with him today?
No.
No, I've been with him for 8 years, and that's enough for me.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
They did witness a lot of shouting, a lot of screaming, and a lot of mutual pushing. They're very angry with you, sir. Your children will not grow up as whole human beings if they do not have any contact with their father.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Robin Grant claims her ex-husband Colden Grant won't return their children's possessions. Colden says since Robin won't let him see his kids, he wants to keep the items.
Why don't you step back up, please?
May I ask her to view these, please?
Ms. Grant,
Your Honor?
I am not condoning any act of domestic violence that may have occurred in your home. I will tell you from what I heard from the children, there was only one instance that your younger daughter told me about when your husband twisted your arm. While I'm not condoning that, we're not talking about an ongoing pattern of physical violence that the children witnessed. They did witness a lot of shouting, a lot of screaming, and a lot of mutual pushing, shoving. They're very angry with you, sir. Your girls are very angry with you. And Mrs. Grant, I'm going to make a couple of suggestions to you. In the short time that I had to speak with your daughters, they are so fixed, although your older daughter clearly is sad about it, at not having contact with their father, that I think it almost would border on the criminal if you did not see to it that your children were engaged in some sort of therapy. Because I believe it is a tremendous mistake for children to be estranged from a non-custodial parent the way these children have been estranged from their father. Terrible mistake. But it's a mistake for girls not to want to receive mail from their father, not to want to communicate with him at all. That says something to me about the custodial parent, Mrs. Grant, because I've seen enough children of separation and divorce where there is a lot more domestic violence that goes on, and those children still want to have contact with their father. These children, for some reason, do not, and they were not able to articulate to me any really valid reason for it. So I must attribute that to things that they've heard at home. I think it's a tremendous mistake. I think in the long run you will be hurting your children and hurting them dramatically if you don't change your attitude with regard to him. He's their father. You picked him. You were married to him for 21 years. You were together for 21 years. You made 2 children. These are the only 2 children that you have. And if he is less of a husband or less of a father than your children would like, that's it. I've tried to explain to them he still loves them. They have to feel as if he still loves them. They don't feel that way, and they must be getting that from someplace other than him. So I think you're making a big mistake if you don't encourage your children in that direction and not say to me at age 9 that you're going to let her make up her own mind what she wants to do. Okay?
And I hope that Robin's anger stopped filtering over to the children. It's really her anger that have my children feeling this way.
Well, I don't doubt that, sir, because I've very rarely seen children so fixed with basically what I've heard in the back without the kind of history that would suggest that that they have a good and valid reason for it. The marriage is over, it's over.
Did Maria relate to you that whenever they want to speak to him that I allow them to call? They stopped calling because he kept lying to them?
Miss Grant, what I'm telling you is there's a difference between children asking to call their father and feeling that they are betraying their mother if they're asking to call their father because she's so angry. Just listen to me, Mrs. Grant. You're shaking your head no. I've been in this business for a quarter of a century. I've probably seen 10,000 separations and divorces. They're all not so different. And children feel that if they ask to contact, communicate with the non-custodial parent, when there's so much anger on this side, that in some way they're being disloyal to their mother. So it's not a question of I let them call whenever they want to call. They have to be reinforced constantly with the idea that their father may have shortcomings, but he loves you.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Mr. Grant, you have promised me, sir, that you will return the children's things to them.
Yes.
That is their telescope, their stamp collection. I don't know about this coin collection that they spoke about. If you find it in your heart to return it to them, that's terrific. They certainly would like to have their pictures back, so you're going to make copies of all of those things and see to it that they get them. Return their things. It's stupid to have their things. Right?
Well, those are the only memories I have. I have no contact.
Okay.
So right now...
Well, but you know, you don't get warm from looking at a telescope, sir.
No.
So you have to return their things. It's important to them. So you can't be angry and also let that flow down to the children. It's a start. I don't know what will happen eventually, but Mrs. Grant, your children will not grow up as whole human beings if they do not have any contact with their father. By the time they're 20, 25 years old, it will be a void for them. And you should be protective of that. I think that you love them.
It's a void now.
Well, then you have to do something about it. You're their mother. You've moved them halfway across the world. So it's your responsibility to shorten that distance in whatever way you can, because they're going to have a void as adults. If they cannot accept the fact that good, bad, shortcomings, he's done things that disappoint them, this is their father, and if they don't feel as if he loves them, they're not going to grow up strong. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge...
Thomas versus Lewis. Step forward, please. You may step out.
Judge Judy will...
Step forward, please.
18-year-old restaurant hostess Dana Robinson claims 32-year-old cook Sergio Castro sexually harassed her at work. Sergio says he was just patting her on the back.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 437 on the calendar in the matter of Robinson versus Castro. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, sir, have a seat, please.
Ms. Robinson, your complaint alleges that you were hired as a cashier in a restaurant that was managed by the defendant, that you were sexually harassed by the defendant in the restaurant, and when you complained about it to the owner, you were fired. Is that what this case is about?
Yes, Your Honor.
When were you hired by this restaurant?
I was hired November 20th, 1997.
And who hired you?
The owner of the restaurant did.
When did you first meet the defendant?
I met him the day that I was hired at the restaurant. I met him that morning. The owner was there. He hired me, and he told me that he wouldn't be there during the afternoon, but Sergio would be there to help me if I needed anything.
And what were your duties in the restaurant?
My duties were to run the register, take phone orders, take the in-store orders, the way you had it set up. When you come in, you place your order, sit down, and your food would be brought to you. I would take those orders. I would just, if they needed help running the food out, I would do that. And occasionally, I would wait the tables.
Tell me about this first experience that you had with sexual harassment by the defendant.
Okay, well, when I first started, he would come over to me while doing my job and pat me on the back.
Slowly.
Okay, he would pat me on the back. That would excite me a little bit since I had just started.
How would he pat you on the back?
Can I show you on my husband? I don't want to be
Who is
tardy
this?
or anything. That's my husband.
Stand up, sir. Show me, you could show me on your husband.
Okay, he would just come over to me and pat me on the back and things like that when I was doing a good job, and I didn't think nothing of it. I thought he was trying to boost my ego. And from there, it went to, you don't have to stand with me. It went to like just a pat on the butt. It kind of made me feel awkward at that point. Didn't say nothing. It just went from like to a rub on the butt. A lot of times he'd just stand there and just put his arm around and rub my back when I was talking to a customer.
Did you sit down? You were very good.
Thank you.
Did you tell him that that made you feel uncomfortable?
I did tell him at one point. I said I'm just here for a business-like environment. That's it. I told him, I said, you are married, I'm married. I have a daughter, you have a daughter. I said, I am in no way, shape, or form attracted to you, nor do I have any feelings for you.
At what point did you say this to him?
This was about 2 days after I worked there. At first, I mean, I didn't want to say anything to him and lose my job, so I'd go home several times to tell my husband, look, this is happening at the restaurant. I just told him. He said, well, confront him. Tell him you don't want him to do it. So I told him, and after telling him it didn't do anything, so I called the owner at his home and told him what was going on. He just told me he had never had a complaint on Sergio as long as he'd been open, which was 2 weeks, and that he didn't believe me. He told me, take a couple days off, I'll call you back. Well, I took 2 or 3 days off, never called me back. So I called him at his other restaurant. He owns 3 restaurants. I called him at the big restaurant, and I told him, look, something has got to be done. So I'm feeling very, very insecure working there. And he just told me, I'll talk to him, I'll talk to him, I'll talk to him.
Had you gone into work?
No, after I told him what was going on, I told him, I'm on my way into work right now. I said, okay, so I'm going to go into work. And he said, no, I don't need you. He said, I've got someone else to fill your place for right now. After the second, I hadn't heard anything, and I said I went to the other restaurant. He told me to meet him there. I picked up my paycheck, asked him if he had talked to Sergio. He said, yes, he did. Sergio had no clue what I was talking about. And I do want to bring this to your attention, Your Honor. It's not only me, but 3 other girls. The other 2, at this point, don't want to stand up for ourselves. Our town is so little. My reputation is ruined at this point. So, I
Why
mean,
is your reputation ruined?
It's talk constantly. People tell me that I'm just trying to get money out of him, and I've got harassing phone calls from people that I used to work with. At one point, my husband and I decided to go through a divorce because he wanted to say something to Sergio about this. I just told him, look, just let it go, let it go. And as I said, I mean, it's caused me a lot of problems. I have a 7-month-old baby. I can't even support at this point. That social services is trying to take him from me.
Why is social services trying to take your baby?
Because his parents can provide for her better than I can. We're living with his parents right now, and I haven't bought diapers, formula, nothing.
You mean the 2 of you were living with his parents?
We're living with him right now. We had planned to have a house by Christmas, but when I got fired, I didn't have the money to do so.
What kind of job does your husband have?
He works with his dad part-time doing carpentry. So
what does he do with the other part-time?
Stay home. He hasn't been working. I haven't worked since I was fired.
And when were you fired?
I was fired on December 2nd. That was when I told the owner that I wanted to work for the weekend. I said, can I work with you through the weekend? He just told me, he said, no, come and get your paycheck. And when I got there, that's when he didn't actually tell me that I was fired. He told me that he did not need help anymore. This was on December 2nd. But yet I've got a newspaper dated December 3rd, December 10th, and February 4th where he's dying for help. He says a fast-paced restaurant, pizza person, and a hostess cashier. That was my job. So He said, I've got these newspapers if you want to look at those.
I believe you.
So like I said, I mean...
Are you related to the owner of this restaurant, sir?
No, I'm a friend of him.
Friend of his?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me your version of the events after you met the plaintiff?
Okay, well, like she said, I did pat on the back like, for a good job. Oh, she's doing good in the beginning. And about the other part, the kitchen's pretty small in the restaurant. It is pretty tight, and she was told a few times to stay away from the kitchen. Therefore, like, accidents, you know. I mean, I handle hot food, whatever, so I turn around, and I had the people right next to me. So I can't avoid touch somebody, because I can see on my back, and I just turn around, and person is right there.
Right. So what you're saying to me is that maybe you couldn't avoid touching her because it was so small in the kitchen.
If I did touch, it was an accident. There's no meaning on it.
Now, you see, Mr. Castro, you have to start to think logically. Miss Robinson needed a job, right?
Yeah.
She came to work on time?
She did.
And she didn't leave early?
No.
And she didn't call in sick?
No.
So she was, in that way, a responsible employee.
The thing is, we never tell her we don't need you anymore. All right? We never tell her she was fired, or we tell her that she...
You just didn't give her hours?
Well, we cut her hours in order to try somebody else, because we couldn't try somebody else when she's working.
Your Honor, my hours were cut from 40 hours to nothing.
Who were you?
I worked there.
Just a second.
She worked with us, and she can tell you
Nobody ever had 40 hours there.
Sorry.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
So you saw somebody touch your wife's behind, and you didn't say anything?
It kind of got underneath my skin, but I'm just not much of a talker.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Restaurant hostess Dana Robinson complained about the cook Sergio Castro touching her. She says she was then asked not to return to work. Now she's suing for sexual harassment.
She needed the job. She has a child to support. So she was uncomfortable, and she called your boss. And you acknowledged that she called the owner, correct?
The owner told me that, and
good.
That she called.
That she called and complained.
Yeah. So I talked to her.
You're Beth?
I'm Beth.
Well, step up here for a second. Now, Beth, when were you hired by this restaurant?
At its inception.
So about 2 weeks before she started?
More than likely. I don't remember exactly how long I'd been there when Dana started.
A couple of weeks.
I do remember the first night that Dana worked there, and...
Just a second, I'm not finished with my question. What was your job?
My job is also to run the register. So when we have one behind the register, the other one could be on the floor if there were two of us. But there's really only, at this time of year, room for one person there. It's not that busy right now. However, is trying to find people who he can trust, who get along well with his other workers.
Don't tell me what he's trying to do.
That's all. That's why he doesn't give anyone 40 hours.
All right. Now.
She never gave 40 hours anyway.
She got 40 hours. How many hours did you work when you were there?
38.5 hours the first week that I worked there, and I talked to the owner's wife, and she said that was written on my check, was 38.8 hours.
Okay. Now, how were you hired for this job, Beth?
Well, I worked with a restaurant that is, well, the area we live in is really seasonal. I started the day that another restaurant opened down the road in Glenville.
Who did you know?
And I worked until it closed.
Who did you know?
I know. I've known him for years.
Okay, and that's why you were hired?
Partly.
Okay.
A lot of people know the owner.
Did you know the owner?
Yes, I had a seasonal job at a country club, and he come down there to help us one day. I worked in the kitchen there with all men, never had a problem with sexual harassment. And I told him at that point, I said, look, season's almost over, I need a job. He said, come talk to me. He's like, you know, I'll work you. He said, you do such a great job down here.
You all keep saying seasonal jobs. Mm-hmm. What kind of seasonal job is this? Is this a resort
spring,
community?
Summer, and fall. It's like
in the
a
winter,
small town on the mountains in North Carolina. A lot of people come from the season, and it's nice up there.
Your Honor, where we're from, you've got one Hardee's in town, okay? Who's trying to do fast food in a town that is used to sit down.
Fast food is
good food.
Listen to me. Fast food is not what she's complaining about. She's complaining about fast hands.
But nobody...
Right? She's complaining about fast hands. And, Mr. Castro, you see, one of the things you acknowledge is that you sort of gave her a pat rub on the back. Listen to me. You're not supposed to put your hands on anybody. But if I believe you, then what you're telling me is she was doing a good job.
She was doing
and all of a sudden, she got her hours cut to nothing.
She didn't follow the rules. Don't go behind the line.
Baloney.
No, it's not baloney. She keep going on there. The line is...
No, just a second.
The really small kitchen.
A really small kitchen? I don't have to see the really small kitchen. When did you tell her, Mr. Castro, when did you tell her that she was violating the rules by going into the kitchen?
We told her a few times.
No,
don't go
when did not we? When did you tell her?
Sometime in December, I don't remember.
Did he ever tell you not to?
I was fired the 2nd of December. How could he tell me sometime in December?
So,
my last day of working was after Thanksgiving.
Miss Robinson, listen to me.
All right.
Did he ever say to you, you're violating the rules by going into the kitchen?
Once he did tell me, he said, look, we're busy in the kitchen. You need to go back to where you were. And that was it.
Okay. And when did he tell you that?
This was maybe my 3rd or 4th day working there.
Okay.
What should we be doing?
And Mr. Castro, certain things have a ring of truth to it, sir. Now, I'm not suggesting that there was anything more than what you might refer to as playful patting.
In the shoulder. And she never mentioned anything to me.
No. She did not complain to the boss because you were patting her on the shoulder like this and saying, great job. That's not what she was complaining about. She was offended enough to call the owner in a restaurant where she needed a job. There aren't lots of jobs in that community, so she's taken a certain risk by calling the owner and saying, I'm having trouble at this job, tell him to keep his hands to himself. Is that pretty much what you told him? Have you ever done that before in the 3 years that you've been working?
She said she liked it when he did that at first. And it was this, but I can't imagine him doing
Just a second. Hey.
It made her feel good.
Just a second. I'm not talking to you.
All right, that's fine.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Did you ever tell Beth that he had touched you?
I didn't talk to Beth much for the simple fact, Beth,
No, just answer my question.
No, I didn't talk to Beth much because they...
So you never complained to her about this?
Never complained to her about it. I did complain to her about her trying to do my job.
That's not what I asked you.
That's
not what I asked you.
Complaining about Sergio touching me, no. I never talked to her about that.
So the answer is no.
That's what I said, no.
Good. No, you said it and it took too long for you to say it. I got other things to do today.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
He gave her a pat, sir.
Yeah, you can see that part on the shoulder.
No. Shoulder.
Yeah,
shoulder. I'm going to give you an anatomy class, Mr. Castro.
She never say anything.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 18-year-old Dana Robinson says 32-year-old Sergio Castro sexually harassed her. He says he was just patting her on the back.
You know, it doesn't sound to me as if, Miss Robinson, you are a shrinking violet. You know, you pretty assertive.
My husband is also a witness as to seeing what went on with that.
With what?
With when he patted me on the butt. He was working there at that time, and he did see it.
Did you see it?
Yes, ma'am. I did see it.
Look at my eyes.
I'm sorry. He said that he told her to stay out of the kitchen area. When things calmed down in the restaurant, I noticed numerous times that when somebody
Is your last name Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
You stood up here so that I could ask you a question, so that you could give testimony with regard to what you saw with regard to any unlawful touching.
I'm sorry.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now answer that question. Did you ever, look at my eyes, see him touch your wife?
Yes.
When?
When she was working there.
Tell me about it.
He plays it off. He uses his patting on the back and then the rubbing thing.
Tell me what you saw.
I seen him pat her on the back. He slid his hand down and patted her on the butt.
When did you see that?
I'm not sure what day it was. I'm not very good when it comes to keeping up with dates.
Well, he worked
and what happened? Just a second. Just a second. And where were you when you saw that?
I was out in like the dining room area.
And exactly, you saw him pat her on the back.
Yes, ma'am.
And show me what you saw on her.
I seen him. It was basically
Turn
more.
around, please. I can't see.
It was basically more of like a rub than a pat.
Yeah.
He just done this and then it just done this.
Right. And then what did you do?
Can I say something?
No, not yet.
Okay. I didn't say nothing.
You didn't say anything?
No, it kind of got underneath my skin, but I'm just not much of a talker.
You can say, well, he's
Stop.
lying.
Up. So you saw somebody touch your wife's behind, and you didn't say anything. And what did your wife say to you?
She asked me if I seen it, and I said no at first. I told her no.
Why did you say no?
I just really didn't want to get in it at the time because, I mean, she had been coming to me earlier telling me about it, and I was just like, well, you know, don't say nothing about it, don't say nothing about it, just keep doing your job.
Well, didn't you want to deck him when you saw him touch your wife?
I didn't want to get in trouble. I mean, I've had some problems and I've been in trouble before, and it's just, I can't do anything else to get in any more trouble.
Sit down.
Can I say
He
something?
certainly knows Sir Galahad, your husband.
No, it's not that. I'll be truthful with you. He's on probation right now for violence. And if he violates his probation, it's 120 days in jail. He told me that if he was to hit Sergio
I didn't ask him whether he should deck him. I said that he wanted to deck him. But certainly not only didn't he confront him about it, when you asked him, did you see that, he said no.
He just told me that I was a big girl, I could handle myself.
Yeah, he said no
What a
because that's a
prince.
lie. I didn't touch her, and he can't see anything because the counter is that high.
Mr. Castro.
And I didn't touch it. I mean,
Mr.
from
Castro.
the dining room,
Mr. Castro.
you can see nothing on the kitchen.
Mr.
And he
Castro.
never touched her anyway.
He
What?
gave her a pat, sir.
Yeah, you can see
Yes,
the part
you
on the
did.
shoulder.
No,
I
no,
pat
no,
on
no,
the
no,
shoulder.
no, shoulder,
Yeah, but she
shoulder. I'm
never
going to give
said
you an
anything.
anatomy class, Mr.
She
Castro.
never say anything.
She did say something, Mr. Castro. She did say something. She called the owner of the place. You think that this lady,
She
listen.
never mentioned nothing to me, and when I asked her, she said she denied calling
All
the
right.
owner for that.
Now, listen. No job is a guarantee, Miss Robinson. No job is a guarantee. And this wasn't a job that was paying you 50 grand a year, right?
No.
Okay. And you haven't worked since? I don't know why you haven't worked since.
At this point, like I said, my reputation is gone. I've had people
I don't know
from
why
his
your
restaurant-
reputation is gone.
I've had people from his restaurant calling me saying
Actually,
things.
nobody called from the restaurant.
I'm not allowed to mention the girl's name, but the girl had quit there on her own because of Sergio also. It started
Excuse
with
me, the girl that she's mentioning, she's hired.
She's back.
She went back because she asked me for a job, and she's back. And she told me that she asked her to come here with her.
Shh. Listen.
And she said no.
Enough
because
already.
That's not a lie. Because
Listen.
that's a lie.
Sometimes you have to...
The other girl that she's mentioning, she denied it because she asked her to do it, and she said no. So that's a lie.
I'm going to give you one more second.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Judges have to make decisions based on common sense. Now, the common sense of this situation is that Miss Robinson needed a job. She needed a job desperately because she had... Am I talking?
Yeah.
She had a job. She had a job that she wanted to keep. She had family to support, and she had Prince Charming over here who certainly was not providing a lot. And by the way of support, moral support. See my mouth moving?
We tried to help.
You
her,
see my mouth?
giving
You
the
see my
husband
mouth moving?
Giving the husband a job, and he
Judgment in
couldn't
this
do it.
case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,000. That's all.
Excuse you may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Mrs. Boughton, step forward, please.
In a moment. Sandra Trevino used to live with Foster Reeder. Now she's suing Foster's son, Dustin, for bills he ran up on her Sears credit card.
Order, all rise. All rise, please. Quiet in the courtroom. Judge, this is number 132 on the calendar in the matter of Trevino versus Reeder. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Miss Trevino. Mr. Reeder.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Reeder Sr. Step up here. Ms. Trevino, according to your complaint, you and Mr. Reeder Sr. were living together, correct?
No.
He wasn't living with you?
He stayed with me for a month.
Stayed with you. I paid the rent.
Just a second. He stayed with you for a month. This is his son.
Yes, ma'am.
He also stayed with you.
Yes, ma'am.
And while they were staying with you, you let Junior use your Sears credit card.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
Well, we were good friends, and he was just starting a job, and there was stuff that he needed, like tool chests and stuff, and he promised to pay me back when he started working and started getting an income, and I trusted him. He's a nice kid. But now that Senior and I are no longer seeing each other, he doesn't want to pay me.
Why didn't you ask your father for money?
Because I like Sears tools.
Because what?
I like the tools that Sears put out.
So?
She had a Sears charge card.
Go ahead, sir. Maybe you can answer for him.
Actually, what happened, Your Honor, when we got together, and we were there a lot longer than any 2 months.
Well, first it was a month, now you say it was longer than 2 months.
It was a lot longer. The relationship went on for about 1.5 years. Mrs. Trevino's credit card was not being able to be used at the time, and I paid it up, brought it current. The Sears credit card, I paid up the Sears credit card where it could be used. I paid up her Visa credit card, which they never let her use it. Okay, at that time, my son could have asked me for the money, but I didn't even know they were going out and buying the tools. She took him to Sears and started on her own while we were still together. And as we were living together for quite some time, over a month, things went on between them. He could have gotten the money from me if he'd have asked me for it.
Well, that's what I want to know. Why didn't you ask your father to borrow the money for your tools rather than asking Miss Trevino?
Because she had a charge card for there.
But he had the money.
I never came up to ask him for that, Your Honor.
All right, so now you used the credit card. How much did you charge on her credit card?
About $1,100, Your Honor, or so.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much did you pay back?
$1108.45.
You have proof of that for me?
Your Honor, what I have is my check register.
And what does it say in it?
That I've made payments. I have 9 checks totaling the amount of $508.45.
Is that made directly to Sears?
Sears and Mrs. Trevino.
Let me see it. Do you deny that he gave you these checks, madam? He's got them in his book.
He gave me checks for the rent when he was living there.
Some of this, how much rent?
He was paying $200 a month.
There are charges here for $32.45, $38, $75, $63.
For what?
I don't know. It says to Sandra Trevino. Let me see your Sears bill, please. Is she charging you rent?
I paid her rent on my own will, and I never wrote her a check for rent. I just given her cash.
What do you mean you gave it of your own will, sir?
I was told I didn't have to pay rent, but I paid her anyway.
That's not true.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I was the one paying the rent at the time.
That's not true.
Out of my own money. That's why he didn't have to pay rent.
He said he was giving her cash.
He did give her money, but like I said, it was because he wanted to.
So you say, sir, that you repaid her $508 by check, and this is for the tools that you bought on the Sears card. Is that right?
Yes.
But you also say you paid her cash.
Yes.
Twice.
Yes.
How are you going to prove that to me?
What? Ma'am, I have no... we were friends at the time. I didn't think I needed a receipt for that.
Well, but you paid most of the money by check. Why would you pay $600 of it in cash?
Well, because I would go cash my check, and I'd just give her the cash instead of the check.
Why did you give her some checks? All of them were under $100. And then what you opted to give her in cash, you gave her in two $300 payments. That doesn't sound logical to me, sir.
Well, at the time, I had the cash on me. And the only reason why I didn't get a receipt was because I was living with her. She was seeing my father.
Did he ever give you cash?
No, ma'am.
He did not?
No, ma'am.
Okay, return this to him. Yes.
He did give her cash, Your Honor.
No,
And I've given her a lot of cash even since then.
No, I believe...
A couple of times I didn't ask for receipts. Then at the very last, she started writing me receipts. I didn't bring them with me, but she did write me some receipts.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
She stole her car out of a shopping center before Christmas, and I got I got blamed for the car.
This is getting fascinating.
And later today,
I did see a cat, and I saw them, you know, running after the cat, and I did see a cat.
I'm not sure I believe that you saw a cat.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Sandra Trevino says 26-year-old tow truck operator Dustin Reeder used her credit card and didn't repay her. Dustin says he paid her back in cash.
Ms. Trevino, why are you suing him now?
Because they were going through some bad times, and he didn't have any money. He went to jail for a couple months. The kids were trying to run the business, and they weren't making ends meet. And I was actually helping them keep the business going while he would. And
What kind of business?
Towing business.
Automobile towing?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you incarcerated for a period of time, sir?
Yes, I was.
For how long?
I was actually in jail for 45 days.
For what?
Because she had stole her car and I got blamed for it.
You're lying, Seth.
That's right. She stole her car out of a shopping center before Christmas, and I got blamed for the car, and I didn't involve her in it. I took the heat because my lawyer advised me to take the heat, so I took it.
Explain. No, this is getting fascinating. This is much.
Hey, it's the truth. You can check it out with the courts.
Well, you can't check it out with the courts. If you pled guilty, sir, and served 45 days, then you pled guilty to something. Explain to me, she stole a car.
That's right.
Out of a parking lot.
That's right.
How did you get involved with it?
Well, when I first met Mrs. Trevino,
He tried selling it to Pop.
She didn't have a car. She had problems with her car. I gave her the money to go out and put a down payment on a new car. When we started squabbling, she couldn't make the payments. So then she decided, it was insured, she decided that she would take it and collect the insurance off of it, which she did.
You're a pathological liar.
What are you, just a second.
The car,
Pathological.
you didn't collect insurance?
Ms. Trevino, go ahead.
The car,
So she reported the car stolen.
that's right.
Ah, it's coming together. She reported the car stolen, and then the plan was for her to go out and sell the car once she got the insurance money for it. Is that right? Am I right?
You're close.
Well, tell me where I'm off. Tell me where I'm off.
Anyway, as it turned out, I got caught with the car
How did you get caught with the car?
because somebody had did some work on it, brought it back,
You mean did some work on it to sort of
changed the VIN
change
numbers.
the VIN numbers?
Changed the VIN numbers. Brought it back. I got caught with it. Okay? And like I said, at that time, I never brought it up. I never one time said anything about it to the law or anything. I just went to jail for it.
Well, you knew that there
And
was you
believe me,
knew the
believe me, I wish
scenario,
I
so you
hadn't.
weren't blameless, sir, right?
I was partly to blame because I got caught with it.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I drive a tow truck.
Your father's tow truck?
Yes.
Did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. These tools that you bought from Sears, what did you need them for?
I like to work on cars.
Sounds to me, with the exception of this young man, these people all deserve each other. Well, I'm going to give you credit, sir, for the following. I believe that you gave her checks towards the Sears bill of $1,100 in the amount of $500, leaving a total of $600 left. Now, I want you to look in my eyes and tell me whether you gave her an additional $600 in cash.
Yes, ma'am, I did. In 2 installments.
Hmm?
I have given her $600 in cash for the tool bill.
For the tools.
Yes, on the
You
Sears
gave her
charge.
extra money for rent
Yes, I was paying her $200 a month for rent.
in addition to the tools. Is that right?
Yes, every month I stayed there, I gave her $200 a month.
Ms. Trevino, I believe him. This young man, I believe. I don't know if I believe either of you two people, but I believe him that he paid you. This lawsuit is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Pathological liars. They're known liars. That's all they do is lie.
And now the next case.
Parties on Brown versus Silberg. Step forward.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on
Step forward, please.
20-year-old receptionist Crystal Thompson says Kevin Paktovichet deliberately forced her off the road, totaling her truck and knocking her out.
Order, all rise. Your Honor, this is case number 389 on the calendar in the matter of Thompson versus Pack-Dividget. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat, please.
Ms. Thompson, you allege that the defendant ran you off the road, damaging your truck. He says you caused the accident. It was your fault. So I assume from these papers that you had some contact with each other before this incident happened. Is that right?
That's correct.
Well, tell me, what was the relationship between the two of you?
I do not really know him. I worked with his boyfriend, Felix, at an answering service, and Felix was to relieve me that day. I was in charge at my work, and he was calling saying that he was going to be late, and I got very upset because I had worked a 10-hour day, and he's always late, and so...
You're Felix?
Yes.
And so I got very upset and yelled at him. We yelled at each other, and I hung the phone up in his ear. Kevin is very protective of Felix and got angry with that, I guess. I don't know. I didn't have any contact with him until he hit my truck.
Well, tell me how that happened.
I was at work, and like I said, me and Felix had yelled at each other. And then I saw Kevin waiting downstairs, thinking he was just waiting for me to leave because I was in charge. So I was thinking he was
just
waiting.
Just a second. He said he's going to be late. You got very angry. You yelled at him on the phone and hung up. Waiting downstairs.
No, it was because she gets off right when he starts. And
waiting downstairs.
No, it was because she gets off right when he starts. And
so you drop him off. He goes inside to the house.
Well, actually, he didn't end up going in. They were right at the door, and they were arguing right there. And I was watching, you know, to make sure that nothing happened.
Okay, so they were still outside.
No, that's
it was like right by. They were inside the door, but I could see them.
Arguing.
And so they were arguing right.
But then there came a time when he went in and she came out.
She came out right, and I lit a cigarette, and then she made a U-turn and she went away. She drove in front of me, and I drove away.
So far,
and
correct?
There's been lots of times when we've driven away at the same time before. So.
Okay.
No.
So tell me what happened.
On the computer. And that when he clocks in, I clock out to relieve each other. So we weren't standing at the door. We were already in our office. And he was waiting downstairs. It was a good 5 minutes that we yelled at each other, and I got to my car. I had to get in my car and drive all the way down a hill, told Felix that he was going to follow me. Well, anyways, we're in
No, I never said, sorry.
How did you find that out?
Because Janice, my boss's daughter, was staying at the house.
Well, you should have brought a witness because you can't tell me that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you say it was a good 5 minutes.
Yeah, a good 5 minutes.
And so tell me about what happened after he started to follow you.
Okay, it's in a gated community, and the speed limit's 35, and it's like a windy canyon road, and so I was going the speed limit 35. He was not stopping for any stop signs or anything. When I would stop, he would follow right behind me. I still didn't know what his problem was, so I kept going, and he passed me, which you're not allowed to do. It's just a 2-lane highway, and he passed me. So we get to a stop signal, and we had to each make a right. I don't know where he was going. So we get to a stop signal, and we had to each make a right. I don't know where he was going, but I had to make a right. And he had made a right as well, and I was behind him. We were in number 1 lane, and so he was going very, very slow. So I went in the number 2 lane. And as soon as I moved over, he swerved in front of me. And so I went back in the number 1 lane, but then a number 3 lane had opened, are you following? And he went all the way over to the number 3. So he's a number 1, and he cut all the way in front of me and went to number 3. And he was following me very closely. And so I was
So now he's behind you?
Again, yeah, now he's behind me. And so I was going around a turn, and it was raining that day, so I was braking around the turn, and he smacks in the back of my truck. So I kept going. I was going to pull over, so as soon as I was starting to pull over, he smacked the back of my truck, which sent me spinning out of control, and I hit the center median. And then as soon as I hit the center median, I bounced off of it, sort of, I guess you would say, and he rammed the center of the driver's side 2 times.
You have pictures of the car?
Yes, I do, before and after pictures.
Let me see them, please.
Do you want them out of the album?
No, I don't mind looking at them in an album. Okay, sir. Give me your version of the events, please.
Okay, I had just left his work, both their work, and she was in front of me, and she was driving so slow, and she was doing it on purpose. So I go around her, and then I went to the light, where I was supposed to make the right-hand turn, and she's behind me, and she's honking at me and honking at me. And so then I make a right-hand turn, and she's behind me, and she's totally tailgating me, and I make a left. And when I merged over into the number 2 lane, because the number 3 lane ended, she was in front of me. She was just like right there in front of me. So then I tried to squeeze over to get into the number 1 lane, and she tried to get into the, she was trying to get away from me, and I was trying to get away from her. We both ended up in the number 1, and I hit her, and then she spun out into the middle, and I ended up on the side of the road. And I went over to her side of the road, and she was just yelling at me, telling me, I'm going to get you for everything you've got.
I was unconscious. Sorry.
And so she drove away. And I mean, it was just a car accident, Your Honor. And the only reason we're really here today is because she hates me because I'm gay. And I mean, I've got witnesses here.
Yeah, she hates you because you damaged her truck.
No, well, she hit the brakes.
Just a second.
She hit the brakes.
Just a second. First of all, you didn't say that when you were just telling me your whole scenario. Your whole scenario ended with the fact that you had to change lanes.
Right. Right. And I ended up behind her. I don't know how I ended up behind her, but she hit the brakes. That's how I.
Listen to me.
Okay.
Can you say I made a mistake?
No. Yeah.
Good. Step up here. Listen to me very carefully, sir. Why were you going to be late?
Because I had to pick him up from work.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had to pick him up from work. I called her a half an hour before I had to be into work, and I told her I might be 5 minutes late. She gave me an attitude. She hung up the phone on me.
Had you ever been late before?
Yeah, I had been late in the past. I understand her.
Just a second. That's not right.
I understand. I understand, Your Honor.
She's worked 10 hours. He's got his problems. You've got your responsibilities, so she had a reason to be angry, correct?
Well, we both live together and we have one car, so...
She is not a partner in your misfortune.
I understand.
She wouldn't be a partner in your good fortune. She's not a partner in your bad fortune.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
If I told you you were a fat pig, wouldn't you be offended?
I wouldn't really care.
Okay.
I really wouldn't care. Your opinion does not matter to me.
It's the same thing.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Crystal Thompson says 19-year-old Kevin Paktovich stalked her and ran her truck off the road. Kevin claims the accident was her fault.
Now tell me what happened when you got there.
She was standing right there in between the couch and the wall and the office. And she was watching
where
TV.
is the office compared to
when
the
you
front
walk
door?
in, the living room's on this side, and then there's a door going into a den right here, and that's where the office is.
So it's off the front door?
Right. I walked into the office to clock in through the computer, and she was doing something in the kitchen. I think she was putting away her dishes. And then we had problems in the past with conflict between each other. She's very controlling. She's very controlling.
Not interested in her being controlling.
Okay.
Mr. Padilla, you told me you clocked in. You told me she was putting away the dishes.
Right.
You told me...
I told her, basically, I want you to talk to me with the same respect that I talk to you. She goes, you know what, Felix, you need to get a life. You need to become responsible. And she slammed the door in my face.
This is in the office?
Yes.
So you had this conversation with her. She was in the kitchen, then she came back to the office. You had this conversation.
I wanted to say more to her just to get things settled, so because we were working 2 weeks nonstop, just me and her.
Fine. Now you see, sir, when you lie, it always comes back to bite you in the behind. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because according to your witness, your witness supports her version of that day, not yours.
I understand what you're saying, but the office is right there at the front door.
Just listen to me. Not true according to your witness. They had a lengthy conversation. She wasn't even in the same room when he got there. She was in the kitchen.
Right.
Then she came back from the kitchen. All that takes time. So it's not, sir, as you suggest, that as soon as he walked in, they were standing right in front of the door and having an argument, and you were just waiting to see if everything was okay. So when you tell a fib, then you know what happens, sir? The person who's supposed to figure out the truth tends to doubt whatever it is that you're saying. You got it?
Yeah, I do.
Good. So now we get to the car. So now we get to somebody. So you're annoyed. You're annoyed because your friend is annoyed. And you decide, who are you?
I am his mother.
Whose mother?
Mr. Padille's mother. I do not know her.
Just a second. What information do you have from your first-hand knowledge about the events of that day?
My son had called me. I'm sorry. My son had called me at my residence and had told me what had transpired that evening and evenings before that led up to the situation this evening, Your Honor. Apparently there was sexual harassment taking place at the place of employment by this girl, Crystal.
That's what he told you?
On several different occasions, yes, Your Honor.
So why did he, let me ask you this question. Instead of staying there because he shouldn't tolerate that sort of thing, why didn't he either leave or bring a sexual harassment lawsuit? Why didn't he do
had
that?
asked me what he could do, Your Honor, and I had explained to him, you have one of two choices. Either leave the place of the employment or do a sexual harassment suit against her. He in that evening did quit. He did not want to leave the work. Your Honor. This girl here called my place of employment and harassed me and threatened me, and I filed a police suit against her.
When was that?
About, it was a couple of weeks after this took place and my son had quit his place of employment.
Why would she call your place? What did she say to you?
Crystal used to work at where I worked, and she was let go because of her performance and because of other suits that were filed against her with the clients for racism and what have you with the city of Temecula. And at that point, she had accused me of walking in and taking her hours from her.
Listen, we're getting a little far afield of this. Let me tell you.
It does, Crystal.
Hey,
It
listen to
does.
me. Hey, don't talk to her. Talk to me. Let me tell you this. Your son, this young man here,
Yes, Your Honor.
has told me the whole truth so far about the events of this day. That's why we're here in court.
That is correct, yes.
That's why we're here.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe so far what he's told me. I think he's been honest. He knew he wasn't right not to get to work on time. It was irresponsible. She's not a partner in his trouble. This guy's a wise guy.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You gotta think before you act like a dope. How old are you?
19.
I give you a certain amount because you're a young dope.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. After she says he deliberately ran her off the road.
This guy's a wise guy. He waited for her outside, and he damaged her car.
But the reason that the situation took place, and I could see both sides, is that they were both angry because of the harassment and the things that she was saying to my son.
Let me tell you something. She didn't wait for him. He waited for her.
No, but they were both, from what I understand.
He waited for her. Why do you think, madam, he waited for her? What do you think that he was going to do when he waited for her? You don't know.
You're right, I don't.
Right. But common sense and what happened here suggests to me that he waited for her to harass her. And the best way to harass her was in the car, because he wasn't going to get into a shouting match with her. He figured, I'm going to harass her a little bit in the car. That's what happened. That's why he waited for her. Instead of avoiding confrontation, he instigated confrontation. And you cannot suggest to me, madam, that you believe that because of the problems that your son was having, if he was having those problems at work, he had the right to do that. He did not have the right to do that because somebody could have gotten killed, somebody could have gotten hurt, somebody other than the two of you. A 5-year-old who was crossing the street in front of you when you were acting like a lunatic.
Your Honor, I totally understand that. I know that I'm at fault for doing that, I was being stupid and I was being childish, but she was doing the same thing. Because once we got out on the road, she was playing the same games with me.
You waited for her, sir, to do it, right?
I understand that.
Well, you didn't tell me that first. First, you gave me some C and B stories, sir, about, well, you both just happened to leave at the same time. That's what you told me first.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then you told me that you saw this
told you
big
that
argument.
I waited for the argument to be over.
Then you told me you saw this whole big argument at the front door when you saw absolutely nothing because he was in there a good 5 minutes before she left.
But they were...
But me no buts. Give me the estimates on your car.
Why did you over here?
Mr. Padilla,
Yes.
you look like a nice young man.
Yes.
He's a wise guy. Do you understand what I'm wise guys? You look like a nice young man. You have a nice mother.
I got an estimate for everything that's mechanically wrong with my truck that it won't work now, and then what it would do to fix the body of it.
A lot of damage. Show Mr. Padilla's mother the picture of the truck.
And the two after that, too. It's not just a little accident.
And you have some insurance coverage, is that right?
No, I have none.
Why don't you have insurance?
It canceled a month before because I was going to sell this car. Now, obviously, I can't, but I was selling
How much did you pay for the car?
My dad paid $1,300 for it, but put thousands of dollars into it.
Paid $1,300?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no way, madam, that I am going to give you, what are you asking for, $5,000?
Correct. That's way less than what it's going to cost me to fix my truck.
Show me the bills for what your father put into it.
I don't have those.
Well, I can't help you.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
How long ago did you buy this car?
In '93. It was my first car when I was 16.
And what year car is it?
'82.
Okay. I'm giving you $1,300, which is what you paid for the car a very long time ago. Very few cars appreciate in value. They depreciate in value, yes.
Is there any, can I say anything about the threatening phone calls that I got from her and what caused me to quit my job? The kind of things she said to me?
Just a second. Let me, wait 1 second.
Can I say something, Your Honor?
Shh. He asked me a question, and I'm looking. Just a second. Did you file a counterclaim, sir?
I can't do it because...
Did you file a counterclaim?
No.
You have a lawsuit pending against her?
No.
Well, while it might be interesting as to why you quit your job.
Well, that night after
while it might be interesting, sir, it's something that is not germane to this proceeding. She damaged her truck, and she can only establish to my satisfaction that she paid $1,300 for the truck. Nobody disputes that. You can't buy much for less than $1,300. But you got to think before you act like a dope. How old are you?
19.
Listen, I gave you a certain amount because you're a young dope, right? But a car in the hands of somebody who is using it other than for transportation is like a weapon. You don't settle grudges with a car or a truck, right? You don't do that. It's not smart. That's how a lot of people get into trouble. That's all.
All right, excuse you. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next Judge Judy.
If you ask Felix, I asked him every day to inform me so I could be informed about how gay people are or how they are. You call yourself it.
What are you talking about?
You call yourself
I'm allowed to. It's me I'm talking about.
Hello?
You telling me is a different story. And if I told you you were a fat pig, wouldn't you be offended?
I wouldn't really care.
Okay.
I really wouldn't care. Your opinion does not matter.
It's the same thing.
No, you walked out.
What did you
I didn't walk out. I have a good job. You have no life.
Treat me that way.
You're not. You guys need to get a life. I don't even know you. Who
That's
are
right.
you?
You don't know me.
You need to get a life too.
No,
that's why you are.
I have a life.
Okay.
I have a life. I have a family.
Step forward, please.
Next case.
Bodies on Boldazar versus Jarvis. Step forward, please.
39-year-old Julie Boldazar wants her ex-husband, cable TV installer Lee Jarvis, 52, to pay the medical costs for their son's broken hand.
How long have you folks been divorced?
4.5, almost 5 years.
And how many children did you have together?
2.
Ms. Boldazar, according to your complaint, one of your sons was visiting with his father.
Yes.
And was injured.
Yes.
Playing in the backyard.
Yes.
You want him to cover half of the medical costs that were not reimbursed by your insurance.
Absolutely.
You say it's not your responsibility.
Yes, ma'am.
Whose responsibility is it?
That's a good question, Your Honor.
I only ask good questions.
In our divorce decree, it does not say I'm responsible for medical and dental.
Just a second. In your divorce decrees, does it say that your former wife is responsible for medical and dental?
No, ma'am, it's not.
So your divorce decree is silent as to who's responsible for medical and dental.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes.
So your former wife says, I am prepared to pay half. Took 2 of you to make a child. I'm prepared to pay half of the medical costs. Doesn't that sound right to you, sir?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
That was easy.
Pretty easy.
Can I see the unreimbursed medical bills, please? Did you add up the unreimbursed amounts?
Yes, I believe it was $1,984.
Total?
Total, yes.
So he owes you for half of that?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, I believe so, too.
Thank you.
When the divorce judgment is silent, Mr. Jarvis, it seems to me you're a parent. You pay child support?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
How much do you pay in child support?
The payment is $511 a month.
For 2 children?
Yes, ma'am.
And who carries the insurance for the boys?
My husband, my current husband.
That's really not a lot of money for child support for 2 children. How old are the boys?
15 and 17.
$992. So that's what he owes you for that.
Thank you.
Now, there's another part of your claim that I don't quite understand.
Okay.
You want to explain it to me?
Sure. Both of the boys have, and I'm not sure of the medical term, but in layman's terms, extremely difficult orthodontic cases. Because my husband does carry orthodontic insurance as well on the boys, when it was presented to those orthodontists, they were not able to help us and had to refer us outside of the insurance system. And so we had to seek the services of very skilled orthodontists as well as jaw surgeons. My oldest son in particular is going to have a jaw surgery, which is horrible, very grotesque. Anyway, we didn't really have a choice. This is not a cosmetic situation. This is a medical condition. Because
well, if it's a medical condition, madam, why don't you take that up with your insurance company? Because no insurance company can disclaim, because if you say that this is a very serious condition.
Right.
HMOs very often try to disclaim.
Yes.
What you have to do is you have to fight them. They can't say, we don't have doctors to fix the problem, and the problem is too serious, therefore you have to pay for it. That sounds ridiculous to me.
Right.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Well, in this case, Mr. Jarvis, you owe your former wife $992 for the unreimbursed medical bills of your son who was injured. I'm going to suggest to you, sir, that it doesn't look to me by the size of your boys that you have much longer to go with regard to your financial responsibility for them. That means you have to take a second job. Do it. That's what parents have to do. But these are your boys, and minimally half of the responsibility, especially since your former wife's husband is paying for the medical insurance, at least half of the bills that aren't covered by insurance have to be considered yours. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Teeters, Holman versus Slatter. Step forward, please.
25-year-old Cammie Holman says 24-year-old vacuum salesman Jeffrey Slater swept her off her feet, conning her and her mother, Lois Teeters, out of thousands of dollars. Jeffrey says after he and Cammie split up, she began harassing him for money.
Order. All rise. This is number 252 on the calendar in the matter of Teeters, Holman versus Slatter. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Who's Mrs. Teeters? Is that you? Miss Holman? Mother and daughter. Former live-in boyfriend.
Correct.
I have two complaints here, and according to both complaints, at some point you met him and he moved into your house. And did you move in there with your child, sir?
Yes.
You have a daughter?
Yes.
How old is she?
3.
You have custody of her?
Not full custody, no.
Were you living with her full time when you moved into their house?
With my daughter, partial time, half and half.
And according to the complaint, during the time that he lived there, each of you were foolish enough to let him use a credit card, and he ran up substantial bills on those credit cards, and then took off. Why don't you start? First, what prompted you to let him move into the house?
Well, I was going to rent a room to somebody anyway to help me make ends meet, and they were getting together, and he was interested in moving out from his mother's place. She was driving him nuts or something, so he needed a place to live. So it worked out. It seemed fine for both of us.
But according to these papers, he moved into your daughter's room.
Yes, they were a couple by then.
So that didn't help to pay your bills if...
Well, he was going to pay rent. Yes, he was paying rent.
He was paying rent?
Yes, he paid the rent.
How much rent did he pay?
$400 a month.
Okay, now would you mind telling me why you gave him a credit card?
It started out just, you know, he wanted to make some purchases, and he only got paid every 2 weeks, and he was gaining weight, needed clothes and what have you, and he would give me a post-dated check. And I let him do that, and he did. The first couple of purchases, he gave me a check, and I held it, and then, you know, when he got paid and it was good, I mailed it in to the credit card company.
Did you give him his own credit card, or did you just let him use yours?
No, he had authorization. Cammie has copies of my cards. We have, you know, 2 cards on the account, so if she was with him and they were shopping, they would get something and put it on my card. And he gave me a check and paid me back. So the first 2 or 3 times, you know, that was swell, it worked. And he wanted to make some larger purchases, and the arrangement...
Like what?
Oh, well, he was trying to build his car to race, so he wanted like a transmission, and he had this good deal and a converter and different things that he was buying. And the arrangement was that he would make the payments to the credit card company, and that worked for me because then I didn't have to come up with the minimum. My minimum would be met. And he would get behind, like it would be 2 or 3 months. I'd get phone calls from the creditors, and they'd say, you're behind, and I would check with him, and he'd say, oh, I mailed it, I'll call them and straighten it out. So he did make some small payments on the minimums on the account. I can't say for the first few months because it would be 2 or 3 months before he made a payment, but you see, you know,
Okay, now
over
how
a
much
period
does
of
he owe
time.
altogether on your credit card? Take it out. We'll show it to him. Together with the purchases.
The total that that I have mine made up for is $4,926.60. That's documented amounts.
Okay. Have you shown those to him, those charges?
Yes, he has copies. He
You
has
have
been
copies
given
of those,
copies
sir?
in the past of all
I've had
of them.
copies. I don't have them with me now.
But you've seen them?
I've seen them, yeah.
Good. Now, what about your credit card?
Okay, my credit card started out with he needed a gas tank fixed in his 68 Camaro because at the beginning of our relationship, that was his transportation to work. He didn't have the money.
First, what prompted you to have him come into your house? How long had you known each other before you decided to move him into your house?
We were friends before, and then we got together, and we were together every day since. And so
How long?
How long? That once we got together.
Now, how long were you friends first?
Oh, May of '96.
Yes.
And then got together July 4th.
Of 96?
Yes.
A really long courtship. At least 8 weeks.
Well, he's a very smooth talker. I was also coming out of a bad marriage, and it's nice when someone tells you, you know, all these wonderful things about you and makes you feel wanted and loved, which is what I needed at the time, I guess. And I think he played on that too, but that's a personal thing.
So he moved in?
Yes. And we made a room for his daughter. She had her very own room. My mom and I purchased all the stuff to decorate it. We made them, it was their home.
Are any of these bills bills for what you did in furnishing his daughter's room?
No. And Tiffany has her bedding and stuff. Her mother has it. She uses it with Tiffany.
But those were gifts?
Right, those were gifts, yes.
Okay, but so now tell me about how you came to give him your credit card.
He needed a gas tank, like I said, the repair, and he didn't have the money. And, you know...
Did you know that he was already using your mother's credit card?
No, he hadn't. He used mine before he used my mom's.
Did you know that he had used your daughter's before you let him use yours?
I don't really remember if I knew it specifically that he had.
Go ahead.
So we got his gas tank repaired. He was driving a long distance, and he'd run out, basically have to fill up just to get back home because it was all pouring out on the ground.
And how much was that?
That was $120. That's rough. I mean, I have it of the credit card thing.
Okay, but there were a lot of bills here, according to you. 3,000 some odd dollars worth.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She came in just ranting and raving because I was leaving. She didn't want me to leave. And then after she hit me, I defended myself and pushed her to the ground. Yes, I did.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 25-year-old Cammie Holman says the man she thought she loved, 24-year-old Jeffrey Slater, conned her and her mother, Lois Teeters, out of thousands of dollars. Jeffrey says Cammie is angry because they broke up.
Give me an idea of what he was purchasing on your credit card.
On mine specifically?
Not yours.
Robinson's May. He needed new clothes. Like my mom stated, he had gained weight when we got together. I guess he liked my mom's cooking. I don't know. So there were lots of purchases for new clothes for him, as well as one of his mom's Christmas present was purchased on my Robinson's May card.
Did you purchase your mother's Christmas present on her credit card?
She purchased it, yeah.
He was with me at shopping. His mother would not have gotten a Christmas present, or her boyfriend, if it hadn't been me paying for it.
Well, I understand that, but did he say, can I buy my mother a Christmas present and put it on your card?
No.
Shh. Did he say that to you?
He said, I said, we need to go shopping and buy your mom something. He said, well, what should we do? I said, well, let's go to Robinson's May and get something for her. So we went, because I have a Robinson's May card. But that's only $21.54. That's...
Well, you see, that's a problem.
Right.
Because in order to have an agreement for him to pay you back, there has to be some sort of an agreement. This wasn't a, you know, I'll lend you the money to buy your mom a Christmas present.
So we can get rid of the Christmas
present. So give me some
fine.
others.
Okay, so he got clothes for him, $297.25, $132.50, $43.09. Those are all clothes for him.
Give me some of the big bills that come up to $3,000.
Jacob's electronic system, that is an electronic system for his 68 race car, his Camaro. It's an electronic system.
And how much was that?
Part of it was $515.44. The other part is $281.85.
Does that, Mr. Slater, have a familiar ring to it?
I know exactly what the Jacob system is.
No, but does that bill?
Yeah, the bill, no, I know exactly what it is.
Well, then tell me about it, sir.
Well, during the time that we were living together, I went ahead and we were building my race car, or at the time we were building it.
What do you mean we were building your race car?
They were helping me purchase items for my car.
Yeah.
And during that time, I purchased an electronic system for making the car run proper. And I went ahead, ordered it with their consent. And when it came in, as time came on, I gave money for it over a period of time.
So you're telling me that you paid it all off?
I'm not saying I paid everything, because a lot of the stuff that we had purchased were purchases together.
No, not for your car.
Just a second.
I'm sorry.
Let's just talk about the car. I mean, I read your answer, and you seem to say, I don't owe her anything. That these were things that were purchased sort of as a couple.
A lot of stuff was purchased as a couple, yes, but as the car, over the course of time that I've lived there, I have paid money to the credit card companies.
How much? Show me.
This here, what I have in my hand is basically a check register on two different things that shows
I'm
documentation.
not interested in your check register, sir.
Well, what I'm saying is this here shows what I paid, when I paid, and amounts.
It shows nothing. Canceled checks show what you paid.
Okay, well, I can get canceled checks, but I did not get any, no.
Well, where did you think you were coming today, sir? To a ball? You were coming to court. What do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a store manager.
Which means that you know something about business.
Correct.
Right? You can take a check register and sit down and do it almost like a novel. Write whatever you want in there. That's why we use canceled checks as proof. What is that? That is nothing. A check register is a nothing. How much did he pay in total on your credit card?
I don't know. I didn't include any of the ones that he had paid.
None?
No.
And what about you, Cammie?
He gave me about $140. That went to, he took my car to Bakersfield.
Whatever. He gave
And
you about
used the gas card.
$140.
Yes.
Can I
it
see some of
wasn't
these?
credit
Now I
cards.
want to take a look at some of the charges.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, just the whole package. Yeah.
There's letters in there saying, we highlighted some
I don't
parts
want the
for you.
letters. I just want to see
Okay. It just says that he's going to pay us. So I didn't know that particular one right there on top.
Jacobs Electronics ignition system, $515. Is that you?
That was mine.
Okay. How about trip to Texas airfare? What is that?
When we were dating, we were going to plan a trip to go to my father's house, and I didn't have the money at the time, and she made the arrangements with my job. She went ahead and purchased the tickets for me, Cammie, and my daughter, and we flew out.
This was for me to go back and meet his family, to meet his family.
Is that what the trip was intended for, sir?
It was just supposed to be a trip for all of us to go visit, because I haven't seen my father in quite a few years.
Well, why should she pay for that?
It was a gesture. She said okay, and then I was going to pay part of it.
You were going to pay part of it?
Yeah, I was.
How much?
As much as my plane ticket was.
And what about your daughter?
Well, we hadn't talked about that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Pay $72 to get your hair styled. They're ripping you off, sir.
Real people, Judge Judy. Cammie Holman says she thought she loved 24-year-old Jeffrey Slater until she realized he was conning her and her mother, Lois Teeters. Jeffrey denies the allegation.
We have something here. Spark plugs.
Yeah, he bought new spark plugs and wires for his car, Excel. It was at an auto parts store. They wouldn't take his check.
Is that you, sir? Spark plugs.
Yes,
That
probably.
sound familiar? Why don't you pay your own bills? Why are you relying on these two ladies to pay your bills?
During that particular thing there, they would not accept a check from me at that time for whatever reason.
So why don't you just give them cash? Everybody accepts cash.
I didn't have cash on me.
Well, why don't you just go to the bank and get cash?
Well, we were going to, but Cammie said, well, why don't we just put it on my charge and then you can pay me back.
You said, can we just use your charge instead of having to leave and go to the bank and come back?
All right. Look, there came a time when you left, right?
Yes.
Why?
Things were working out between us, and I decided, things were going to work out for the long term, and I wanted to get out of there. And then after I left, things started getting more hectic. I had to have the cops called on her at my job.
Why is that, sir?
Because he hit me and threw me on the ground and left bruises, which the bruise pictures are at home. We accidentally forgot them.
When she came in my job, she come in ranting and raving because she didn't want me to leave, first of all. And
because you owe my
I
mom
said,
money.
okay. She came in just ranting and raving because I was leaving. She didn't want me to leave. And then after she hit me, I defended myself and pushed her to the ground. Yes, I did. And then after that, I got up, grabbed the phone to make a phone call to the police. And at that time, when I started coming up, she comes around our counter bin and hangs up the phone. And then grabs me by the hair and just yanks a ton of hair
not
out.
what happened.
And then during that time, then she's saying, well, you owe my mom this, you owe my mom that, and I want it this and that. And then my phone rang. I finally got away from Cammie. And when the phone rang, I answered the phone, and it was the Fullerton Police Department when they had to come out and take
How
her.
much after you left did this incident occur? Assuming, sir, that what you say is true, how much after you left did she come to your job?
Oh, she came to my job a couple times, but we had numerous amount of phone calls during the day. And then what finally ended up happening after I had the cops come, I had to leave that job and go to a whole different area and get away from them because of the phone calls and everything else. I was in the verge of losing my job because of it.
And how much money have you sent to both plaintiffs since you left?
Since I left?
Yes.
Not specifically to them, but that I sent to the credit card companies are probably around maybe $800 or so.
Just a minute. $800?
Roughly.
Show me the last bill here. And now, in what month did you leave, sir?
May.
Now take out your last check register. I love it when a game plan comes together. Your last check register, sir. Since May.
This particular one right here is one of the last ones that I made.
The last bill that came from NBNA and stuff, I think. Is what you want.
May. What date did he leave?
May 1st.
May 1st.
That's what time I told him to get out. He came.
Just a second. Shh. Is your credit card MBNA?
That's mine.
That's yours. All right. So here we have MBNA, $140. And then we're going to go down, and I'm going to see if I can find after May the rest of the $800. Let's see here. I must be missing something.
It might be right in April, too, when I paid some money.
We're not talking about April. I'm talking about since you left, sir.
Well,
I speak English. Do you speak English?
Yeah.
You said after May, after you left, you gave her about $800, and that your check register is accurate. So I see May 15th, $140. I'm just looking for the rest of the $800. I see one in July to a Powerhouse Gym for $350.
No,
Mr.
that's,
Slater?
that's something else.
That's something else.
And that might be not be the most current one because I had to change bank accounts.
No, this goes, sir, through all of the months. June, July, August. This does
I know,
everything.
but I have 2 different checking accounts.
Sir, you see anything written on my forehead? Huh?
No.
Who's Nicole?
My hairstylist.
Pays $72 to get your hair styled.
He pays for his
They're ripping you off, sir. Well, so far, sir, all I see of the $800 is $140. Nothing else. I see another $380 for your gym. You spend a lot of money between your haircuts and gym. Nothing for what you owe.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Sir, you have to take responsibility for what you do. These people are not related to you by blood. They are not related to you by marriage.
Thank God.
You had a relationship with this young lady. She thought it would work out. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. In any event, you spent a lot of their money. Not only did you spend it, you enjoyed it, and you have the fruits of it. You're driving around in a car, unless you sold it, that they fixed. You're wearing nice clothes that they paid for. You have a nice stereo system that you listen to. And on and on and on, based on these bills that you say you saw. So you owe them the money. And your excuse that you didn't have an agreement with them is just a lot of baloney. I mean, I don't think that these are ladies that have an awful lot of money. And I think, furthermore, your conduct, knowing that you owe them the money and spending in 2 months' period of time almost $800 on a gym and $70 to get your hair coiffed is a lot of nerve. So the judgment in the case is for one plaintiff in the amount of $3,000 and the other in the amount of $4,900. That's all.
Excuse you may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And on the next...
Forward, please.
27-year-old security guard John Thomas says his former friend Denise Lewis filed false charges of sexual harassment against him, causing him to be fired from his job.
Order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 306 on the calendar in the matter of Thomas versus Lewis. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Mr. Thomas, your lawsuit alleges that the defendant filed false allegations against you of sexual harassment, causing you, at least temporarily, to lose your job?
Yes.
And suffer all kinds of emotional trauma and stress and embarrassment.
Yes.
Did you work together in the same office?
No, ma'am.
Well, tell me how you knew her.
We cordially met in the lobby area, and...
In the lobby of a building where you both worked?
Yes.
What kind of work were you doing?
I'm in the security field.
So you were a security officer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And, from time to time we spoke, and then every now and then we went to lunch, socialized.
and talked everything. And everything was pretty cool. There was a situation.
There came a time when you alleged that you lent money to the defendant.
Yes.
And that precipitated her making these allegations against you.
Yes.
Well, tell me about that, sir.
Okay. Well, as I said, she was having some problems. And she asked my assistance as far as loaning her some money for a motel that she had wanted to stay in to relocate from the current place she was at. And so, you know, I went and I assisted her in that matter. She stayed there for a couple of weeks.
How much money did you actually loan her?
Well, it wasn't a direct cash flow. I utilized my a credit card, so I would be able to keep a record in the future.
How much?
$250.
Okay. $250.
Yes, $250.88.
Okay, so you helped her out with the motel from moving from one place to another.
Yes.
And then what happened?
Then at that time her apartment was ready, and she again asked my assistance to help her relocate to the apartment. Well, she didn't have the funds required to rent out the truck, so she asked if I could utilize my credit to rent the truck out, and then once we've completed the move, she would reimburse me of the initial truck use funds.
And how much was that altogether?
Altogether, that was $57.24 for the truck and $6.25 for gas to refuel the truck.
Now, did she pay you back any of this money?
No.
So there came a time when you started to ask her for the money?
Yes.
And then what happened?
Okay, the disagreement arose around the time when we were trying to negotiate a way to return the truck. Well, apparently she was agitated because I didn't want to loan her my credit card and so she can return the truck and then return the credit card back to me. So that pretty much fueled the disagreement. Well, to pretty much separate myself, I said, well, go ahead, return the money that you owed me, this is the money that you owed me, and we'll just go our separate ways. She responded in a threatful manner, basically stating that, you know, if you don't leave me alone, you're going to regret that you ever met me. So I left it alone Sunday, and Monday morning I called her again, you know, once again trying to see if we can't negotiate this in a mature manner. She wouldn't speak to me, so what I did is I conjured up a letter to her and just basically broke down everything that she had owed me.
Okay, so you sent her a letter.
Yes.
When did she make these allegations against you of sexual harassment?
I sent the letter to her Monday, and the allegations were brought to my attention that Thursday.
Okay. To make a long story short,
Yes.
the charges were subsequently all dismissed.
Yes.
But you had to be transferred to a different location. You took a decrease in pay according to your papers. Is that
yes,
right?
Yes, what had happened is that they had pretty much put me in rover status, where I worked at certain assignments for the going price that they were paying.
So you earned
officers.
less, Mr.
Yes.
Thomas. You earned less. But you're suing her for $5,000, clearly much more than this. And the reason you're suing her for $5,000 is because you say she wrongfully made these accusations against you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Let me hear from you.
Well, Your Honor, first of all, we did work in the same building. When I met John, I told him from the beginning that I'm not looking for anyone, okay? I moved out here from another state. I came out in January. I secured a job in February. Then we met, I think, in March. He would come up to me, give me candy, walk with me while I was on break, and I told him strictly that I just wanted a platonic friendship and nothing more. John continued to, everywhere I was, he seemed to automatically show up. He was a friend to me. You know, we went out a couple times to the movies,
I never asked John for any help of any type of monetary source because I make 3 times more money than he makes, okay? I never asked John for any money. He insisted, he knew where I was staying at a motel downtown. I was happy with that. I knew I was going to stay there until I secured an apartment, which is what I did. But the reason he wanted me to move because he did not have access to me the way that he wanted access to me, because it was a security building and there was no visitors allowed in the building. So he suggested to me that I move to another motel in Culver City.
This is the first hotel that you were in?
This is the first hotel that I was at. This is the hotel I planned to stay at until I found my apartment. He knew I was looking for an apartment. He knew I was looking for a car. He went around and got numbers for apartments. Oh, you should move here. He even went to his complex, suggested I go there, and I decided the same day not to move there because he was...
Stop for a second.
Okay.
Sound like a very intelligent, together lady. Right? And you just told me that you were really happy with where you were staying, and you were going to stay there until you found a permanent apartment.
Right.
But you moved.
Right.
Into a different motel.
Right.
One that he was happier with.
Right. I moved.
Why?
Because it was closer to my job. Right now I had an hour-and-a-half commute from downtown to Westwood.
So?
And I decided to take his offer up because it was nicer, it was closer to my job.
Fine.
Okay.
And he laid out some money for you.
No, he did not. I was paying a certain weekly amount of rent by the week where I was. I had that money. Only thing he had to put with the money was another $40.
Whether it was $40 or 40 pennies.
Okay.
According to him, it was $250.88. According to you, it was $40. You just told me that you earned 3 times as much money as he did. Why in the world would you take $40 from him? Why?
Because I did not have the money at the time. I was between pay periods.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
I have a greeting card from her, and the title says, "To the man of my dreams."
Once I dreamed of someone special. Now I know that I was dreaming of you.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. John Thomas says his former friend Denise Lewis falsely accused him of sexual harassment. Denise says John is angry because their friendship never turned into romance.
Now, when did you make this report of sexual harassment?
After the week after I moved into my apartment.
Why?
Because he tried to force himself on me after we moved the refrigerator and the bedroom furniture into my apartment.
Well, tell me about that, madam.
Okay, after the things were moved into the apartment, he laid down on we put everything in the living room because I had to paint the bedroom. He laid down on the mattress and he called me in there and he threw me down on the mattress and started making sexual moves on me. And it took me about a couple minutes to push him off of me, and I asked him to leave.
And he left?
After some screaming and yelling, and yes, he did.
What kind of screaming and yelling?
I was screaming to get out of my apartment, that you don't live here.
And he left?
After some time, and he left when he got ready to leave.
So that's when you filed a complaint of sexual harassment against him?
It was not only for that reason, was because the Saturday morning when he was supposed to come back and get the truck, I asked him to leave. We had an argument. I asked him to leave.
So you still had the truck?
The truck is still there. He has the keys to the truck.
Okay. So he said, so he had his car and he wanted you to help him take the truck back.
Right.
And what happened then?
I didn't open the door for him.
Why?
Because I was upset with him because of what he had tried to do. Okay, he never came to me and asked me to try and work things out, to try and say, okay, I owe you this money, let's try and make some type of arrangements. The next thing I knew, he had left a letter on the counter of where I work, and it was a bill for how much he assumed that I owe him.
So tell me when you made this allegation of sexual harassment, after you got the bill?
No, I made it like a few days later because he was calling and harassing me at work.
He was
for like
calling and asking you for what?
He was calling, he said he wanted to get together and talk. And I said, I don't want anything else to do with you because of your behavior, because you have been harassing me.
When did you make that statement to him?
I made it on Monday. And I asked him not to call me again, and that I will pay him his money.
So did you pay him the money?
No, I did not. Because
Why?
Because he kept harassing me.
Just a minute. Why didn't you pay him the money? Maybe if you paid him the money, he would stop harassing you. Maybe if you paid him the bill, he would feel as if he wasn't so used
Yeah.
And then he would leave you alone.
Yeah, well, maybe if he had come to me as an adult and not someone threatening me with gang violence and I'm going to get the Bloods to kill you and this and that, maybe if would have come to me in an appropriate manner, I would have been more than happy to settle with him, just like I tried to call him 2 weeks ago. And I asked him, why did you file this lawsuit against me? And I said, can we come to some kind of agreement because I want this to go away? And his comment was, after several moments of silence at 27 years old, was, you started it.
Well, Miss Lewis, you started it. Let me tell you something. I'm a woman, and I take allegations of sexual harassment in the workplace very seriously. But I resent it when women use allegations of sexual harassment as one-upmanship. And I'm telling you right now, the story that's coming through my head is an older lady with a lot more experience has a guy 5, 6 years younger than she is who was clearly smitten with her. And what's coming out of her mouth is, no, no, yes, yes. No, no, yes, yes.
No.
You let him move you into another apartment? You're a smart lady. All you had to do was say, I'm happy where I am, John. I don't mind having coffee with you when we're here. You seem like a nice young man, but, you know, this is not a romantic thing. So you let him help you out once. And instead of doing the nice thing, the right thing, by totally cutting him off so that you fair to him, you're not playing mind games with his head, you call him again when you need help. So he's saying to himself, she really likes me. I don't care what she says. She's letting me rent a truck with her and move her stuff into her apartment and help her place the furniture where it is. So clearly, she may be saying no, no, but her eyes are saying yes, yes.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
She strategically planned it to where I lost out on a promotion. I lost out on a raise.
Oh,
and, you know,
from $5 to $7. Wow.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Security guard John Thomas is suing Denise Lewis for defamation after she accused him of sexual harassment.
You're in your apartment. The furniture and the refrigerator are all set. Then you want no part of him. Well, he doesn't know that, so then he calls you and says, now I feel used, now I want my money. Your response was to file allegations of sexual harassment against him. I don't hear any sexual harassment, madam. He moved you into your apartment. He thought you were encouraging him. He left when you told him to leave. You may say you yelled and screamed, but I don't believe that there was any kind of attempted rape there. I don't believe that for 1 second. And your response was to try to injure him in his profession, which was a security guard. That's not fair.
Just because two people are friends does not mean that, okay, just because one party wants to go forward with a relationship and the other doesn't, that's not, I don't think that's encouraging.
Miss Lewis, you know that he wants romance and you don't. You don't use him.
He took advantage of me.
Oh, baloney.
He did. Oh. He knew that I lived out here by myself.
Nobody takes advantage of you, madam. I've known you for 5 minutes, and I can tell you right now, nobody takes advantage of you if you don't want that to happen. You took advantage of him. And the right thing to do was to let him know unequivocally from the beginning, this is not going anywhere, and not do anything to encourage him. Nothing to encourage him. And what you did was encourage him by continuing to allow him into your life. You have something you want me to hear? Is that why you brought that?
Yes. Due to her statement, she says that she never made any attempt to encourage me or whatnot. Here I have a greeting card from her, dated April 4th, and the title says, "To the man of my dreams."
Can I see it?
So,
just a minute. show this to the defendant and tell her if that signature looks familiar to her.
Yes, it does.
Uh-huh.
This card was not intended for him.
Well, why don't you tell me how you got this card, sir?
She gave me the card around that time. This was the envelope that she gave it to me in.
Can I see it, please? Why don't you try to explain that to me, Miss Lewis? How did he come into possession of a card that wasn't meant for him? Why don't you try to tell me that?
He took it out of my briefcase when he was giving me a ride to work. That card was not intended for him.
Who was it intended for?
Someone else.
Someone else who also moved furniture?
No.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Once I dreamed of someone special. Now I know that I was dreaming of you.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
I have never been interested in him. You know, I'm not interested in overweight men.
You used him, Miss Lewis. And then in order to get rid of him, you filed a complaint against him for sexual harassment. Oh, yes, that's exactly what you did. And you injured him. You injured him in his job. You had him moved from his job. He suffered embarrassment. He suffered humiliation. And at least something else that I find equally as disturbing is we have finally reached a point in this country, at the end of this century, where we do not permit people of either sex to be sexually harassed in their workplace. And unfortunately, it's because of ladies like you that people look at these lawsuits and wonder if they are all real. That diminishes the real allegations of sexual abuse and of sexual harassment in the workplace. It's not supposed to be used as a hammer to solve all the problems that you have. It's supposed to be used sparingly and when it's true.
You don't know that it's not true?
Oh, I know that it's not true, madam. I know that you used him.
That's not true.
You used him. You knew he was smitten with you. You used him. And when you were finished with him and he wouldn't leave you alone, in order to get rid of him so that you didn't have to look at him anymore, you filed an allegation of sexual harassment against him that was ultimately investigated and dismissed because you have been reinstated, correct?
And it was not the first of its kind.
I haven't asked you about your history either. Right? Whether this is a modus operandi for you. We understand each other, Miss Lewis? I am awarding you $2,500, Mr. Thomas. And I hope that it serves as a lesson. Judgment in this case is for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,500. That's all.
Thank you. Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will
step forward, please.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Mrs. Boughton, step forward, please.
32-year-old restaurant manager Guy Gatewood is suing 29-year-old photographer Nicole Boughton for false arrest.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 282 on the calendar in the matter of Gatewood versus Boughton. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have a seat, gentlemen.
Let's see if I can unravel this rather complicated complaint. Mr. Gatewood, you and Ms. Boughton were friends in 1995.
Yes.
And in that year, you sold her a used car.
Yes.
How much did you sell her the car for?
A sum of $2,000.
And she was supposed to repay you at the rate of $250 a month. Is that right? Yes.
Yes.
And you say in your answer that he was pretty reasonable about late payments and that sort of thing.
Right.
But you were paying off this car. What kind of car was it?
A VW Bug.
They're cute.
Yeah.
Right? So there came a time sometime a couple of years later when she hadn't been making her payments and you were worried about the insurance on the car. You decided to repossess the car.
Yes.
So in the still of the night, without telling her, right?
Oh, no. There was a...
Did you tell her you were going to repossess the car?
There was a letter sent to her, yes.
That said what? If you don't, I will?
What?
If you don't pay, I will repossess the car. Right?
Right.
But then you didn't tell her when you were going to repossess the car. Day and date.
It gave her till the end of the month, which was...
Mr. Gatewood, do you understand what I'm saying to you? You didn't tell her when you were going to repossess
the
the
exact
car.
day and time, and no,
Right.
no.
So, without telling her when you were going to repossess the car, this former friend of yours, you went to where the car was parked.
Yes.
And took it.
Yes.
And the registration was still in your name.
Yes.
Because that was your arrangement.
Yes.
She did what any normal person would do, getting up in the morning. You looked outside and you saw...
No car.
So you...
Called the cops.
You got arrested.
Pulled over, yeah.
For stealing your own car.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
What people do to each other and to themselves, this is really so fascinating. I was fascinated when I read this complaint. Now, ultimately, it was okay because you spoke to the police and were able to convince them that it was your car.
Yes.
How long were you in custody?
About an hour and a half.
Was it scary?
Yeah, to say the least.
You ever been arrested before?
Never. I've never even donned bracelets.
What? Did they actually put you in handcuffs?
Yeah, I was on my knees and they put me in cuffs.
Tell me about that. I'm really curious to know.
I was driving home and I noticed the cop following me, and I eventually made it home, and I pulled into my parking lot, or my carport, and I got the lights, and I'm thinking, okay, what's this all about? And I get out of the car, and I get this spotlight in my eyes, and he says, throw the keys to the ground. I'm like, okay. He's like, turn around, put your hands on your head. I'm like, okay. And then he says, walk backwards towards my voice. And I did. He says, stop. And I feel something on my back, and he says, get on your knees. I'm like, execution time. And they cuff me. And I'm like, am I under arrest? And he says, no, you're in custody. I said, can you please explain the difference to me?
Did you say that to him?
Yes.
Did he have a sense of humor?
Not at this time. And so he says, can you explain to me instead why you're driving a stolen vehicle? I said, this isn't a stolen vehicle, this is my vehicle. And he says, what's your name? And I said, Guy Gatewood. He says, well, you got that part right. Then, explain this to me.
Had you known at that time that she had called the police?
No, this is just like completely...
So what you were suing her for is for having called the police and having had you arrested falsely.
Mm-hmm.
So you want some damages for that. And then you want some money for the car.
There's still a balance due on it.
Okay. Well, first let's take care of the car business, and then we'll get into this arrest business, because I have to figure out exactly how much, if anything, you're owed on the car, because she says that she paid money towards the car, and she is countersuing you for the car, and then you're countersuing him, Miss Barton, for some nonsense, which I categorize as nonsense, which is the emotional distress of not having your car, something like that, which I'm not even going to think about because that's a lot of baloney. Now, how much did you pay for this VW Bug, sir?
How much did I pay for it?
That was my question. I'm sure you have an answer.
Initially, when I got the car, I paid $500. I then fixed the car up, put a brand new motor in it, fixed the body, did the interior as well. It came to about $2,400.
Let us assume, for the moment, you paid $2,300 for the car.
Okay.
All right? How many payments did you make on this car?
I had about 2 more payments left. I owed him about $600 more on the car.
How many payments did she make on the car?
She made 4 payments on the car. She only owed $425 on the car.
So she paid you in total how much?
$1,575.
Okay. And how much money did you sell the car for, sir? Because your complaint says that you sold the car after you repossessed it.
I've resold the Volkswagen for $200.
Why?
For the condition that it was in when I got it back, it wasn't worth much more than that.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
The idea that he came at night and took it was a total passive-aggressive, miserable move that is typical of Guy Gatewood.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Guy Gatewood says he was embarrassed when he was handcuffed and led away after he repossessed Nicole Boughton's car. Now he wants payment for the car and the emotional distress.
Who did you sell it to?
A neighbor downstairs for his wife so she could go back and forth to work.
Let me see the bill of sale. What year Volkswagen was this?
It's a 71 Super Beetle.
Mr. Gatewood.
Yes.
You were driving this car when the police pulled you over.
Yes, I was.
Where were you driving it from, sir?
I was driving it from Shooter's Bar in Huntington Beach.
What is the distance between this barn and your home?
2 miles.
And how long had you been driving the car from the time you repossessed it until the time they repossessed you?
It was stored most of the time. Maybe 2 or 3 times I took it out to keep it running. I also have another Blazer and a motorcycle that I use frequently.
Now, Mr. Gatewood, just because you do a bill of sale for $200, sir, doesn't mean that I believe that you sold this car for $200 because the car was clearly a drivable vehicle. Drivable vehicle, cute little car, almost vintage, you know, 71 VW Bug. Was a convertible or not?
No, it's not convertible.
So just because you wrote $200 here doesn't necessarily mean I believe that you were paid $200 for it in total.
I'm not the only signature on that statement.
You're talking about the buyer?
The buyer also.
Oh, well, it would certainly serve. The buyer would certainly say that he only paid $200 for the car because that means his tax when he has to register the car is a lot less. People do that all the time. It's wrong and it's illegal, but people do it all the time when they sell cars that are used cars. They say, hey, listen, put down $200, I'll give you $800 for the car, and then I only have to pay tax on $200. You understand that, Mr. Gatewood?
I understand your point of view.
Now, what did you, after you found out that the car wasn't there, you called the police. When did you realize that he had taken the car?
About 3 days after I made the report. I didn't hear from him. I called him as soon as I called the police. I was like, your car's been stolen. I know I still owe you money on it. I'll pay you the money I owed on it, but just to let you know it's been stolen. So if you get any calls about it being found, then call me back. I didn't hear from him.
And he didn't tell you that he had taken the car?
No.
Right?
Right.
Right.
That...
I was told by legal advice not to speak with her.
Just a second.
Sure.
She told you that she had reported the car stolen.
No, she didn't tell me that she
What
called
did she
the police.
say?
She left on the answer machine. She goes, I don't know if you have the car or not, but it's not up here. Give me a call. And that was it.
And did you call her?
No.
Well, didn't you think that she might call the police and report the car stolen?
Yes, but I didn't think they'd take a stolen police report without proof of ownership.
Well, then, that's your problem, Mr. Gatewood, so I'm dismissing that part of your complaint for having you arrested because it seems to me she did the right thing by calling you immediately, and if you wanted to be smart, you could have had a friend or someone else call her and say, he doesn't want to speak to you personally, he has the car. When did you find out that he had possession of the car?
Like I said, it was about 3 days after. When he didn't call and tell me, make any comment about it being stolen is when I knew that he must have taken it. I mean, because that's a part of his character that I wouldn't doubt. So a friend of mine was like, do you think he took it? And I'm like, you know, he's just miserable of enough person to have done that, but I'm not going to call him until I chill out because I was pissed. I had no notification.
Say, listen to me, you're in court. Try angry.
Angry. I was angry. I was out of control. No, I wasn't out of control. I was just angry. I was amazed that he could have done anything so low without any notification. But like I said, it's part of the nature that I knew of him.
So what did you do? Did you call the police?
I called the police and I said, I made a report a couple days ago. This is the number. Scratch that report. He goes, well, was the car stolen or wasn't it stolen? I said, well, it was taken without notification by its registered owner, so I don't know if you'd call that stolen. But it's not stolen. It's in the owner's hands. When I got a call from the Huntington Police Department a couple months later saying, we recovered your car, I knew something definitely went wrong with the reports. I called him immediately. I'm like, Guy, I need to talk to you about your car. There's some problems. If you need my help with anything, call me, and I will totally help you straighten it out. I never heard from him.
He should have told you. He should have notified you immediately that he had repossessed the car. That's what you do when you repossess a car. You tack a notice on the door. This property has been repossessed.
I sent her a registered letter.
Did she pick it up?
She refused it.
Can I see it?
It was...
Well, that's all right. She refused, so there was no notice. If you had a receipt that she had received it, that's one thing. Why didn't you just leave a message on her machine that you had the car, sir?
Because I couldn't prove that she would acknowledge the fact that she received any information from me.
You could have done both. Right? You could have done both, you know?
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You buy a used car that's 25 years old. Listen, anything that reaches 25 years old starts to go downhill. Believe me, I know. You know, every year it gets a little bit worse.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Guy Gatewood says Nicole Boughton owes him for a car and a false arrest. Nicole says Guy owes her for payments and repairs she made on the car.
In any event, Mr. Gatewood, I'm really sort of surprised that you repossessed the car anyway, since she owed you just a couple of $100s on the car.
I waited 9 months, 3 of which she lived with me, to receive any form of further payment towards it, and there was nothing coming in. I sent her a letter saying, you know...
What do you mean she lived with you? She lived with you as boyfriend and girlfriend, or she lived with you as a tenant?
She was a tenant in one of my... I had a spare bedroom. She rented it out.
And while she was living with you, she was driving this car, and she
Yes.
and she did not make any payments.
No.
But then she moved out. But she paid you almost everything that was owed on the car.
75% of the thing, yes.
How long did you have the car?
I don't know, about a year and a half, year?
2 years, almost.
Yeah. We can talk about the repairs of this perfect car that I paid twice of what it was worth when I first bought it, and I had to immediately put in at least $1,000 on this perfect car. That the money went to his buddies at his garage who charged me so much for
Well, you
repairs.
did. Just a second. Nobody forced you to go to his garage, right?
Well, I thought they
Ms.
would...
Barton, nobody forced you to go to his
You're right.
garage.
You're right.
And when you buy a used car that's 25 years old...
But when it's supposedly in good condition...
What everybody says...
in great condition...
Everybody says it's a cream puff. Isn't that the right word? It's a perfect car.
Anyway, he knew of these repairs, and that's why he wasn't getting some of the car payments on time, was because I was putting so much money into fixing this cream
Listen,
puff.
he's not your partner in this tragedy.
What's that?
He's not your partner in this car tragedy. You buy a used car that's 25 years old. Listen, anything that reaches 25 years old starts to go downhill. Believe me, I know. You know, every year it gets a little bit worse, right? Cars are no different from people. So you buy a 25-year-old car, you be prepared, even if the owner of the car says it's in great shape, to pay whatever it is. If you get disgusted paying for the repairs, then you sell it. But you don't charge it off. Because a bank wouldn't understand if you went to a bank and you say, well, I had to pay repairs for the car, and I had to pay my phone bill, and I had to pay this, and I had to pay that, so I can't pay you this month. They wouldn't have tolerated it. But I have a problem, because you two clearly knew each other. You were friends. You knew each other for a long time. She lived in your house. And Mr. Gatewood, I don't understand why you treated this in nothing more than what apparently is an arm's-length transaction by going and repossessing the car, not notifying her immediately. Not notifying her immediately. Even if you send her a registered letter, that takes a couple of days to get there. Any normal person coming out of their house, not seeing their car, would call the police. Then you are at risk, sir. So you caused that problem yourself by repossessing the car without advising her that you were going to do it, or at least repossessing the car at midnight, tacking a notice on her door, I have in fact repossessed the car. If you have any problem with that, I'll see you in court. Whatever it is. But you didn't do that. So if you got arrested, that's your problem. So that part of your lawsuit is dismissed. And the only thing that I have to try to figure out is who owes who money for this car.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Now, you have any proof that you paid $2,300 for this car?
That was all in parts, receipts, stuff like that.
Well, let me see.
I did bring anything like that with me because I didn't feel it would be necessary for today.
And you say you bought it for $500?
Yes.
So let's see how much you made. So you don't have any proof of how much you put in to have it fixed for me. So let's say you put in nothing. So you bought it for $500. You got $1,575 from her, and you got another, according to you, $200 from your neighbor. 5, 7, 12. So far you got $1,775 for a car that you paid $500 for. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Now, on the other hand, Miss Barton, you had the use of a car for almost 2 years.
Right.
At about $750 a year, right?
Plus all the repairs.
That's what happens when you have a car. You do repairs on a car when you have a car. So for $750 a year, you had basic transportation.
Basic, very basic.
Did you have another car or just this car?
It was great.
It was great. So that seems to me as if, that's nice, 12 months. That was out to what? Less than $50 or $50, $60 a month to own a car? That's not bad. You have insurance for this car?
Not anymore.
Did you have?
Did I have?
Paid up insurance all the time?
All the time, no, not all the time.
Well, that was one of the reasons he repossessed the car, right?
I don't know.
Just a second.
He had more excuses for taking the car.
Let me ask you a question. No, he's very clear in his complaint. He says he was concerned because the car's in his name, and you told him you didn't have money to keep up the insurance. So he was afraid if he got into an accident in this car, they were going to come and take away his other car and everything else that he owns, right? So you didn't have insurance on the car,
okay,
right? Mm-hmm. Oy. Sounds to me as if you made out okay, Mr. Gatewood, in the sale of the car. Sounds to me, Miss Barton, that you brought on some of this on your own, had no insurance on a car. You certainly weren't going to get stuck if the car was in an accident or if you hurt somebody. He was going to get stuck. He's the registered owner, and you have nothing because you couldn't even make the car payment, so they couldn't go after you. So it sounds to me as if you two folks absolutely deserve each other. Your complaint is dismissed. Your countersuit is dismissed. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Parties on Brown versus Silberg. Step forward.
32-year-old retail manager Paul Brown is suing his building manager, Greg Silberg, 52, because his dog fell off the roof when a cat frightened it.
Mr. Silberg, are you the owner of this building in question?
No,
or are
I'm
you
the owner of the management company.
Okay. And this is a 3-story building?
Correct.
You, sir, live in that building?
Yes.
And how long have you lived there?
I lived there approximately about 9 months.
And you have a dog?
Yes.
That dog?
I have 2 dogs.
But that's the dog in question?
Correct.
You were going into your building?
Actually, I was going to walk my dog on the, I was going to visit a friend on the 3rd floor. And
In the building?
In the building.
And your dog did not have a leash on?
They both had leashes on them. I took them in the elevator, walked up to the 3rd floor. I went to knock on my friend's door on the 3rd floor, which is right around the corner from the sun deck. And I had both dogs in one hand, on my left hand, and they saw a cat. This is late at night, about 10:30 at night. They saw a cat. They got loose. As I was running up the stairs, the dogs already were up on the patio or the sun deck, and that one fell. He was down below, and that was it. I mean...
Just a second. Did you see the cat, sir?
Look
at me.
Yes.
Did you see a cat?
Yes, I did. I saw a cat.
Late at night.
That's how they darted out of my hand.
Late at night, you're ringing a bell.
Knocking on the door, correct.
Knocking at a door, right? Like this.
Correct.
Where was the cat?
The cat was to the left going up to the sun deck.
I'm not sure I believe that you saw a cat. That's first. I do believe that your dog ran up to the sun deck. Fell off. Right?
Right.
And you're suing him for $5,000.
Correct.
Tell me why.
Well,
because that's the dog. The dog is here.
Right. First of all, I have pictures before and after what the sun deck looked like before and after, and as well as the medical bills, which ranged into approximately about $1,400. And for my dog's a championship dog, and I was actually going to breed him. I have papers on him, and as well as I have the notice from the city of West Hollywood saying that that sun deck was not properly permitted, and if they had the proper railing on that sun deck, my dog would have never fell. And that's why I'm suing him for $5,000.
I'll see all of his pictures.
And this is the medical bill. And I also have a letter from the doctor stating the condition of the dog.
Who found the dog?
Phil found the dog. He was downstairs waiting for me.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Can I say something?
Do you feel as if you must, sir?
You've kind of said it all, to be honest.
Then why don't you just be quiet?
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Paul Brown is suing building manager Greg Silberg because his dog fell off the roof. Mr. Silberg says the dog should have been on a leash.
Describe the dog when you found him.
Well, I was standing outside, and I heard the loud noise, him hitting the concrete. When I found him, he was unconscious, tongue hanging out of his mouth. He was bleeding from his mouth. I went and grabbed a towel, picked him up. He was stiff. I didn't even know if he was alive anymore. And then I found a pulse. I took him into the apartment, found a pulse, called the veterinarian hospital, and we drove him immediately to the hospital. He was unconscious for a couple days.
Mm-hmm. When you found the dog that night, and I want you to think very carefully, sir, did the dog have a leash?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because I found the dog.
A couple of things. I don't understand how this dog got away from you if you were holding both dogs in your hand with the leash.
I had them both on one hand as I was knocking on the door of the third floor. And I did see a cat, and I saw them, you know, running after the cat, and I did see a cat. And he went off, the other dog, because I called them both,
Well, just a second.
both their names.
So what you're telling me is you had both dogs
In my left hand, correct.
in one hand.
Right.
And you couldn't control holding on to the leashes of both dogs.
No, because actually when they saw the cat...
Well, the cat's not his fault.
Okay, but the balcony's his fault.
Just a second. How?
He broke the law. The law, I mean, that balcony was not properly permitted. If that balcony was properly permitted, that dog would have never fell.
This is not a place that you didn't know about. You knew about this place. Now, I'm not saying he's not in some way responsible for not having it properly gated off. I looked at the gate that he put up there. Your dog can get through that gate.
Yeah, but if...
Just a second. If that's a proper gate that he put up afterwards, that little skinny dog can get through that gate and could have gotten through that gate that night. So could a cat.
Not running that fast.
What do you mean not running?
Not running. A dog cannot get through that gate. Those bars are approximately 4 inches apart. Now, if a dog's running at full speed, the dog cannot go through that gate.
You mean he'd have to stop and wiggle through?
He would have to stop.
Just a second.
He would realize that, no.
He would realize. The dog would realize.
He would realize that he would not be able to get through that gate going that fast. That's why the dog fell, because he was going so fast he didn't see the drop. That's why the dog fell. Now, if that gate was up there, the dog would have stopped.
This gate, sir, is not designed to keep out dogs and cats. It's designed to protect people. Dog and cat owners are responsible for taking care of their own pets.
Correct.
Judge Judy is ready to rule.
Just because there is an accident doesn't mean somebody has to pay you. That's not what the courts are about, sir. This is a people protector. And the fact that you suggest that a dog at full run couldn't go through there, that may be. Certainly, a cat can wiggle through here. Certainly, a small dog can get through here. The design
but not
of it...
at full speed.
I don't care whether it's full speed.
If the dog's chasing a cat...
You're never going to get through to him. Never going to get through to him, sir. Not every injury results in an award of money. You are responsible for keeping control of your dog.
And he's responsible for keeping the railing. I mean,
yes, sir, and I will tell you something else. if somebody chased you up on the roof that evening and you fell off the 3rd floor because there was no adequate railing, you could sue him for a lot more than $5,000 because he is responsible, if you lived and if you could breed, because that's what you're complaining about. But because there was no bar or gate there, that's not the reason your dog fell. Your dog fell because you dropped the leash. And your
but I didn't drop the leash, Your Honor. The dogs got away from me. I didn't drop the leash.
Mr. Brown, sir.
Can I say something?
Do you feel as if you must, sir?
You've kind of said it all, to be honest.
Then why don't you just be quiet?
Okay.
This lawsuit is dismissed.
Parties are excused. Step out, please.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment. And
step forward, please.
I have a life.
Okay.
I have a life. I have a family.
Step forward, please.
Patricia Melnick is suing her former daughter-in-law, 28-year-old Melinda Sperry, for the return of her appliances.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 436 on the calendar in the matter of Melnick versus Sperry. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
Mrs. Melnick, this is your former daughter-in-law, is that correct?
Correct.
And what you're suing her for is for the return of some appliances that you say are yours.
Yes, Your Honor.
And are in her possession.
Yes, Your Honor.
How long were you married to, is that, you're the son?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Tim.
this is my son.
Your last name?
Mangan.
Sit down. How long were you married to him?
7 years.
And you have 2 children?
3.
3 children. So, Miss Melnick, you want to tell me why you think these appliances are worth suing your former daughter-in-law for?
Well, when they wanted to buy my home, which was worth $51,500, they tried to assume the mortgage, and they couldn't. And I have the original agreement. None of my appliances went with the home. Melinda sent a letter on November 10th.
Okay, so let's start.
Okay.
When they were married, they wanted to purchase your home.
Right.
Right?
Melinda did.
Not your son?
No. She did.
Okay. And the appliances did not go with the house?
No, they did not.
Okay, but you left them in the house?
Yes.
And what was the arrangement?
That my son will tell you.
No, you tell me. You're
okay, with that, I let them use them until they would purchase their own or whatever they needed to do if they wanted to purchase appliances. That's the way it went.
No, we had another house, and we bought her house because she couldn't afford it anymore. She, for some reason, won't work. And her other son moved into our second home, and she cried that he doesn't have any appliances and this and that. We left our appliances over at that house for him, and she says that we could have her appliances so he could have appliances.
Okay, because I didn't quite understand that. You turned over your old house to the plaintiff's other son.
Yeah, he's renting it from my ex-husband.
Okay, and that other house was in his name? Your former husband's name?
Yes.
And you left all of your appliances there?
Yes.
So when you moved into your mother-in-law's house, you had her appliances? Fine. Then there came a time when you were supposed to exchange these appliances. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, that's right.
And you say you returned a refrigerator first?
Yes, I had hired movers to return these things.
How old is
Melinda has been, she beat me up 1994.
I have the
she
restraining
beat me up. I have...
Miss Melnick.
She's caused nothing but trouble with the family.
Miss Melnick, I read the papers. She has a restraining order against you, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, so your other son was living in the house and you ordered a mover to take over the refrigerator from the old house to her house. Did you look at the refrigerator first?
No, I was not allowed to go near any of that area.
I didn't ask you whether you looked at it in her house. I asked you whether you looked at it in your son's house.
No, Your Honor.
Well, she says that that refrigerator was delivered in deplorable condition. It was filthy, it had mold in it, and it had dead fly in it, and she refused to accept it. Why are you raising your hand? Did you see the refrigerator
Yes, Your Honor.
at your brother's house?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, step up here.
Thank you. Prior to the furniture to be delivered, I also cleaned the refrigerator and everything else, and then Melinda refused it, and it returned back to my brother's house. They re-cleaned it again.
Well, why did they have to re-clean it, sir?
Supposedly...
Not supposedly. Why, if it was re-cleaned, it was cleaned for a reason. Why was it re-cleaned?
Because she wouldn't accept it.
No, it was re-cleaned because it had mold on it.
Well, she stated that it had a fly in it, Your Honor.
If it has a fly in it, sir, you take a little tissue. You
Right.
pick up the fly and you throw it away.
I did not see any mold on it or anything. I did clean it the first time, and then I made sure my brother cleaned it. The second time, they took it back over there. The third time, she refused it. I also had other appliances to replace that are in excellent condition, like the washer and dryer, refrigerator, stove, everything that was supposed to be returned to her, and she refused every one of them.
All right, sir. Now, let me ask you this question. If all those things were in wonderful condition, is that what you're saying to me? The refrigerator was in wonderful condition?
Yes, Your Honor.
So why in the world would you want to return them to her?
The reason being is that I didn't want any more friction between my ex-wife and my mother anymore.
Well, just a second. Let me stop you right there. You say the appliances that are now in the home that your brother is living in
Yes, Your Honor.
are in great condition.
Yes, Your Honor.
And what about the appliances in your home? Are they in great condition?
Yes, I keep my stuff clean.
So they're nice and clean, right?
Yeah.
Well, everybody should be happy. What do you have to pay movers for? You have great appliances, and you have great appliances. Why do you have to move them from one place to another? Why don't you just say, well, I got great appliances, I got great appliances, let's just call it a day. We both have what we need.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
Well, look at the way you're looking at her. I wouldn't want you around me either.
Well, I don't want her near me either, Your Honor.
And later today,
You can afford to go on dates. Ask them when's the last time we've been able to do anything because we're paying off $8,000. They are your children. Help us.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Patricia Melnick is suing her former daughter-in-law, Melinda Sperry, for the return of her appliances.
So why are you here except to annoy each other?
Eventually we were going to move all the appliances from the other house that my brother is renting from us into the new house that we purchased from my mother.
Right.
And she was supposed to receive all her appliances. My mother was supposed to receive all her appliances back.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Right. However, you just told me that
Melinda,
all of the appliances that were left in your brother's house
were to be returned, and she
are
refused.
fine, perfect, nice and clean, nothing wrong with them.
No.
I don't understand why you're annoying each other.
Your Honor, may I please speak? I have pictures of what she wanted someone to spring clean. I'll show you what she gave us.
You don't seem to understand what I'm saying to you, madam. I don't understand, Grandma, why you're here. If your son has nice appliances in his house, and she has nice appliances in her house, and you have 3 grandchildren, right? Then you're only here to annoy each other. And I don't understand that. Especially when you're supposed to, as a grandmother, make things nice instead of make things difficult.
I did, Your Honor.
No,
I sold my house
no.
cheaply.
No,
Extremely cheaply.
Listen to me. It's time to put a stop to it. This is over appliances. Appliances are a lot of baloney, and I see absolutely no basis to irritate each other. If you want the appliances from your son's house, take them. Take them, and then he'll buy new ones. Now, I'm going to get to something that seems to me even more important. You made 3 children together?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're supposed to love your children more than you hate each other.
I love my children dearly.
And you too.
She doesn't let me see them.
You too. You are supposed to love your children more than you hate each other.
I pay child support, and
you
she don't.
Hey.
She doesn't let me.
Mother-in-law, you're not being smart. You're supposed to stay out of it.
Yes, ma'am.
You're supposed to stay out of it.
After
I guarantee you that you don't know everything that went on in their home.
No.
I have married children, and I guarantee you, I don't know everything that goes on in their home. So you are a fool if you butt in. You're a fool if you butt in when they're married. You're a fool when you butt in when they're not married anymore, because what happens is she gets mad at you and you don't see your grandchildren.
Exactly.
Of course. Of course. Well, look at the way you're looking at her. I wouldn't want you around me either.
Well, I don't want her near me
Listen
either,
to me.
Your Honor.
I'm telling you.
Not after she beat me up.
I'm telling you. I also know that a court gave her a restraining order against you.
But that doesn't stop her from calling my home and irritating me.
Miss Melnick.
And the reason why I'm not working is because of her.
Miss Melnick, you just don't get it.
Yes, I do, ma'am.
You just don't get it.
I get it.
You are going to be without 3 grandchildren. Now, he's supposed to see his children.
No, he has terms which he is supposed to fulfill before he sees them.
Do you mean support?
I pay child support.
No.
What kind of terms?
Well, he just come out of drug rehab, so that's one. And he's supposed to have 10 weeks of parenting classes. And it goes back to supervised visitation.
Okay. Were you an inpatient in drug program, sir?
It was a mental depression breakdown because I didn't, after the incident that occurred.
You don't go into it. Listen to me.
I haven't seen my children.
Listen to me.
Yes, Your Honor.
It says in the order that you are to go to parenting classes, and until you finish satisfactorily those parenting classes and remain drug-free, that you will only have supervised visitation. So am I to assume that you have not gone to the parenting classes?
I attended first at parenting classes, and in the decree of divorce, it said that if I do not fulfill the parenting classes, which are 5, not 10, that I still have supervised visitation. And then after I fulfill the parenting classes, I have unsupervised visitation.
Sir, how long ago were you divorced?
It's been a year. October 14th, Your Honor.
Are you
last
telling
year.
me that in the past year you could not go to 5 parenting classes?
Your Honor, I work second shift, and there is no way that, no, I couldn't. Because in the divorce decree, we finally settled on that in October, and I work as a custodian, and I work evenings.
Judge Judy will continue in a moment.
You don't need my stove because you don't even know how to cook. If it doesn't come out of a box or a can, you don't do it.
What time's your broom fly away?
And later today,
How can I give you what I don't have?
How can you let this man pay your bills?
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Patricia Melnick is suing her former daughter-in-law, Melinda Sperry, for the return of her appliances.
Listen to me, sir. You have 3 children. One way or another, you find 4 days in a year to complete parenting classes if you are legitimately interested in seeing your children. You have vacation. You take time off without pay to see your 3 children. If that's the prerequisite, and clearly, based upon what I'm hearing, without going into all of the gory details, you had certain problems. And the judge was comfortable in saying to you, if you want to see your children in an unsupervised fashion, you have to do these things. And from what you're telling me, in a whole year, you have not been able to find 5 days to complete parenting classes.
And she still hasn't let me see the children, even under the stipulation, to see the children with supervised visitation.
Well, sir, that's wrong. And I'm telling Miss Sperry that it's important for the children to see their father. You got it?
Oh, yes, it is.
You got it? And
Yes,
what
Your
I'm
Honor.
telling you is, if you want to be a father, instead of a supervised father, then you make time to finish whatever prerequisites the court set for you seeing your children, and don't stand there and complain that you're too busy. If you can't find 5 days to go to parenting classes, I don't know when you're going to find 5 days to see your children. That's your responsibility. But I would, more importantly, I would try you and your mother to sit down and to decide that you better stop. You too. Stop what's going on, because that's not good for the children. You know,
Your Honor, on December 11th, her boyfriend and her damaged my husband's car. I have a police report.
Oh, you know, you just
Out
don't
of
get it,
spite.
Miss Melnick. Your lawsuit's dismissed. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Thank you. You don't know how to take care of those kids. You don't need my stove because you don't even know how to cook. If it doesn't come out of a box or a can, you don't do it.
What time's your broom fly away?
Same time yours does, baby.
And now the next case.
Bodies on Boldazar versus Jarvis. Step forward, please.
Music. It's been a hectic 5 days and our minivan has seen a lot of miles now. Just 20 minutes after getting back home, I find myself on the porch settled into my favorite old chair with a glass of rich dark porter, musing over the fact that our twins are experiencing their first taste of independence. Miranda and I have officially become empty nesters, joining the ranks of countless other parents who have gone through the same transition recently, but I'm willing to bet none of them feel as content as I do right now. Since Luke was attending Georgia Tech, our journey kicked off in Atlanta. It was convenient to drop off our rental car. They're eliminating the need to keep switching drivers. The next day we flew our daughter Kelly to Gainesville for her new adventure as a gator, while we continued eastward to Daytona Beach for some relaxation in the sun. Those 3 days were filled with more closeness than we've ever experienced in our marriage. Miranda was absolutely insatiable, starting our family young when we were just 18 means that at 36, our energy levels and libidos are still going strong. On our way back home, we made a quick pit stop at a deserted truck stop where Miri amusingly tried to convince me that she had intentionally left her underwear behind. Now, as I relaxed in my chair, lost in pleasant thoughts, Miranda headed upstairs to freshen up with a shower. I was taking a back when I heard the hairdryer kick in, a sound typically reserved for her prepping for work or a night out. After the hairdryer's hum faded, I heard Miranda's footsteps and the clack of her heels in the kitchen, an unusual choice since she typically wore rubber-soled slippers or went barefoot around the house. Before I could ponder these oddities further, she called out to me, "Alan, honey, can you join me for a moment? I need to talk to you." Waking from my reverie, I rose from my chair, empty glass in hand, and replied cheerfully, "On my way, darling." Entering the kitchen, I was surprised to find Miranda seated at the table, looking fresh in a new blouse and clean jeans. She poured me a mug of freshly brewed coffee and set it down in front of her. Spot Miranda appeared focused and a bit tense, leaving me puzzled as to what her serious demeanor signified. Slowly, I took the seat she had clearly reserved for me, awaiting her explanation. "What's up, Mary?" the first asked, warmly, taking the cup from her hand, sipping the strong hot drink. "I'm leaving you, Alan," she said calmly and casually, grabbing a thick envelope. "I've got divorce papers here for you to go over and sign." She kept talking, but I was completely shocked and couldn't find any words. It felt like a sudden deafening blow out of nowhere. I'd never boxed before, but in that moment I felt like a boxer reeling from a missed uppercut and a heavy knockdown. She pushed the envelope toward me, continuing to deliver monotone statements, each one hitting me like a pile driver to the brain. She seemed completely unaware of the shock I was in. "All the divorce terms are spelled out in these papers. I'm not asking for anything from you. You can do whatever you want with my things here. Our savings are split, bills paid up to today, and I've canceled all joint credit cards. I've updated my address with everyone who needs to know. You can get more details from your lawyer. If you need anything from me, only contact me through my lawyer." Taking a breath, Miranda carried on in her usual dispassionate, businesslike tone. I also obtained a restraining order because I don't want any further contact with you. Once I leave, it's in this envelope as well. Additionally, I've changed my phone number and email address, and all my previous accounts are closed. She didn't anticipate a response from me, and I couldn't manage to say anything. I just sat there silent and motionless, staring blankly at her across the table. The coffee in front of me, barely touched, emitted a faint wisp of steam as it cooled. Please, she cautioned, tapping her well-manicured glossy nail on the tabletop. Don't try to involve the children by extracting information from them. They're aware of what's going on and won't assist you. The same goes for my parents. Miranda, no longer indifferent or preoccupied with her hands, finally directed her cold gaze straight into my eyes. I know you'll want answers, Alan, so I'll just say it. I've been with Dan for the past 13 years, and now I intend to make him my real full-time partner. I loved you, Alan. I just love Dan more. He's endured and waited long enough to deserve me. So today I'm ending things with you, and now I'll belong to him alone. That's all. Goodbye, Alan. Miranda concluded her speech, stood, and made her way to the exit. It wasn't until she picked up the bag by the door and opened it that I found my voice managing to croak out just one word. Why? Still devoid of emotion, she paused, turned to meet my gaze, and uttered only two words: Sandy Thompson. With that, she stepped over the threshold, slamming the door behind her. In the ensuing silence, all I heard were the faint clicks of her shoes, the muffled thud of a car door, and the gradually fading roar of an engine. She drove away, disappearing into the distance that marked the last time I saw or spoke to Miranda. For the next 16 months at work, Dan Roberts was like a father figure to me, my closest friend. For the past 18 years, Mui and Dan's wife Lisa had bonded during their pregnancies, both being close in age. Lisa at 22 and Mary just over 18. Additionally, their daughter Cassie was born a day after our twins, a coincidence that seemed like fate. This initial connection blossomed into a deep friendship, making our families practically inseparable. We spent weekends together, living just 2 blocks apart, until our falling out, the moment that brought the twins into our lives, occurred while both Miranda and I were in college. Mary had always aspired to study business or business management, while I pursued mathematics with the help of a partial scholarship, also playing on the college baseball team. At that time, I hadn't yet determined my future path. However, everything changed when Mary informed me of her pregnancy, necessitating that I set aside my aspirations and find employment to support our growing family. Our parents were incredibly supportive, taking charge of arranging and financing our wedding. Within 2 months, I became the sole focus of my parents' attention. As their only child, they had welcomed me into the world later in life, approaching their 40s, and considered me a precious blessing after years of longing for a child. Marie had an older brother, Tom, who was 10 years her senior. Their familial bond was DIST, as Tom left for college when Mary was just 8 years old, rarely returning home thereafter. Tragically, Tom passed away in a peculiar car accident shortly after graduating from college. This event prompted Miranda's parents to shift their focus entirely to their only remaining child, mirroring the devotion my own parents had shown to me. As a wedding present, my parents officially handed over the deeds to our longtime family residence, as they themselves prepared to relocate further south. With retirement on the horizon, I secured a Position selling insurance policies at a local firm, quickly acclimating to the industry and feeling right at home, while the starting salary for a new agent was modest. Lucrative commissions from successful deals had the potential to nearly double my earnings, albeit at the cost of long hours, typically 12-hour days and occasional weekends in the months leading up to the twins' arrival. Myri took on a part-time role as a secretary at an office, aiming to further her education while balancing her studies online. It was during this time that her parents' support proved invaluable, as they stepped in to help care for the newborns and eagerly visited to spend time with their grandchildren whenever possible. Tragedy struck 3 years later with the incident involving Sandy Thompson. Despite the challenges, I found success in my career, and my company nominated me for Salesperson of the Year for the North Carolina region. Our small yet growing company, which had recently become a market leader and was later acquired by a national corporation, believed in my potential. Along with a $2,500 bonus, I was awarded an all-expenses paid trip to Washington, D.C. headquarters for a gala ceremony and dinner where the year's top seller would be announced, followed by 2 additional days to enjoy at leisure for Myri and me. It marked our first time leaving the city together without the twins, and we were eagerly anticipating the trip. However, 2 days before our departure, everything unraveled. Firstly, Luke was diagnosed with whooping cough, followed by Kelly falling ill the next day. Despite the fact my presence at the ceremony was mandatory with a heavy heart, Myri bid me farewell on Friday morning, urging me to try and enjoy the next few days. Arriving an hour before the gala commenced, I checked in and informed them that I would be attending solo. After grooming and donning my rented tuxedo, I descended into the grand hall and located my seat, finding myself beside Sandy Thompson from our Little Rock office. While most attendees were in their 30s or older, Sandy was only a year my senior at 21. This was her first full year with the company. Prior to this event, my experience with drinks was limited to a few beers, but the open bar at the dinner offered wine. As far as I recall, I only had a couple of glasses. When the awards were announced, I was utterly astonished to hear my name announced as Salesperson of the Year. Stunned, I ascended the stage to receive a trophy cup and a $10,000 check amidst thunderous applause. Upon returning to my seat, I was graciously gifted a bottle of champagne from our superior. Honestly, the rest of the evening passed in a blur until I woke up at 5 a.m. the next morning, finding myself lying next to the enticingly undressed Sandy Thompson. I was overwhelmed with fear, a pounding headache, and a severe hangover. I stumbled to my room, hastily packed my belongings, and was on my way home. Within 20 minutes, Myri was understandably surprised to see me return 4.5 hours later, and as expected, she was not pleased when I confessed that I had gotten drunk at the gala dinner and woke up in another woman's bed the next morning. She abruptly cut me off, refusing to hear my explanations or excuses. The only question she had was the woman's name. Before I could respond, she announced that she was going to stay with her parents for a few days, quickly packing a bag, grabbing the car keys, and fleeing without a word, leaving me with the children for 3 days. Myri ignored my calls, seemingly unwilling to even hear my voice. I returned to work on Tuesday after dropping the kids off at daycare. When I returned home that evening, Myri was already there pretending as if nothing had happened between us. Any attempt to discuss the situation was met with a stern warning that she would leave with the children if I ever brought it up again. That night she initiated lovemaking, but it was mechanical and lacked the closeness we once shared. It took many more months for that feeling to return, but eventually it did. At her request, we never mentioned the incident again. The next year, Mary graduated and earned her business degree, eager to find a job that would utilize her newfound knowledge. Our bond with Dan and Lisa flourished, leading us to spend every weekend together unless work obligations intervened. Despite this, our wives continued to meet and spend time together, albeit with some difficulty, as Dan and Lisa moved 15 miles away to be closer to Dan's workplace. Interestingly, Mary's parents soon followed suit, relocating to the same area to rent a larger apartment that could accommodate their growing family and provide more space for their grandchildren. Additionally, they began caring for Robert's daughter Cassie, granting Dan and Lisa a bit more flexibility. As Dan's company expanded rapidly, they found themselves in need of an office manager and a personal assistant for Dan himself. This role seemed tailor-made for Marie, and after impressing the managers during her interview, she landed the job and thrived in it. Given her long-standing connection with the company and close relationship with Dan, she humorously earned the nickname Dan's work wife. This dynamic persisted for 7 years until tragedy struck. Lisa passed away suddenly from a brain aneurysm. Shockingly, this devastating event occurred on a day when she was visiting me, as was customary when Dan and Mary had to travel for business together. The loss deeply affected us all, but Dan bore the brunt of the grief. Overwhelmed by the tragedy, he struggled to cope alone and care for his 11-year-old daughter. So the plan was for Miranda to visit the Roberts house a few times a week after work to ensure everything was tidy and prepare dinners that could be easily reheated. That's how Mary explained it to me months later, as I was about to leave the garage with the final box for my minivan. I paused to see Mary's car pulling into the driveway. It was her first return since that memorable conversation in the kitchen, where she coldly handed me the divorce papers. Naturally, seeing her today was the last thing I expected. I greeted her as she got out of the car. Miranda, aren't you violating the restraining order by being here? I asked calmly. The ORD ceased to apply on the day we divorced, she dismissed, toying with her key ring. How are you holding up? I shrugged, taking things one day at a time. Would you like some coffee? I called out, already heading back to the house. That would be nice, she replied, following me inside. By now the house was nearly empty, save for a few boxes and a lone dining table in the kitchen. Most of the furniture and household items had been sold to neighbors and acquaintances over the past couple of days, with the remaining items destined for the landfill. A colleague's son had volunteered to handle this task along with his wife and friend. Despite my attempts to refuse their help, a solitary greeting card sat on the mantelpiece in the living room. Since I had recently turned 38, my coworkers had gathered to send warm congratulations, along with another card wishing me luck in my new home. Already packed among my belongings, the company I devoted over 19 years to had always treated me well, so leaving behind good friends filled me with sadness and regret. Yet it was a necessary step. There was nothing tethering me there anymore. With coffee brewed in mugs in hand, we Settled into the same seats where we had sat face to face 16 months prior. So what brings you back into my company on this lovely day? I inquired with detached curiosity, unable to fathom why Myri had returned after abruptly severing ties between us. Can't you guess? She retorted, visibly displeased. The kids received letters from you about your move. Why not just call them instead of sending registered mail? Well, actually, I did both. I CLA, terrified, explaining that it was the only way to ensure they received the news. Otherwise, they might have thought I vanished without a word. I chuckled, then corrected myself. Actually, I reached out to Kelly. I can't call Luke. Why not Mary? Asked, puzzled. I don't have his number. I sighed. The truth is the kids don't want to stay in touch with me, I admitted, noticing her skeptical expression. I'll just have to prove to my ex-wife how our kids really feel, I added, grabbing my phone from the table and dialing Kelly's number on speaker. After 10 long beeps, it went to voicemail. I ended the call and looked at Mary. Couldn't you try calling her, would you mind? Kelly might just be busy, she replied, making excuses, but still retrieving her phone and dialing our daughter's number, putting it on speaker. Interestingly, her call was promptly answered after the second ring. Hi, Mom. How's it going? Kelly's cheerful voice greeted. I'm good, honey. What are you up to? Well, right now, Cassie and I are just hanging out. We have a party later, so we're just lounging around conserving energy, my daughter responded with a chuckle and a hint of laziness. Have you heard anything from your father, Mary asked, glancing at me with a meaningful raised eyebrow. Yeah, I spoke to him last night. He said he talked to you and promised he'd pick up Cassie and me today. Yeah, in about 10 minutes. I think he's going to grab Luke later too, before we all head to the party. Kelly chirped. My heart sank at the sound of my daughter calling him Dad. Myri, always perceptive, noticed how much that thoughtless comment from Kelly stung me. Clenching my fists, I leaned back in my chair and stared blankly at the ceiling. You mean Dan? Mary asked incredulously, as if unable to believe what she had just heard. Well, yeah, Mom. Who else? Kelly continued to giggle. By the way, he really likes it when I call him Dad, and besides, you know, he'll officially be my father in 3 weeks, she reminded her mother. Believe it or not, my ex-wife was set to remarry in 3 weeks. They even sent me an invitation to their celebration. Yeah, right, like I'd actually attend. Kellyanne, when was the last time you spoke to your biological father? Mary impatiently inquired, her voice carrying stern undertones. Oh, Mom, I don't recall. Maybe a few weeks ago, Kelly responded, her tone shifting from amused to concerned upon sensing something amiss in her mother's voice. I opened my call log and displayed it to her, revealing my numerous unsuccessful attempts to reach our daughter. Truth be told, none of my children have called me since Mary left. Not a single call in almost a year and a half. That's odd to hear, because I'm sitting right next to him now, and I saw firsthand how he tried to call you just a minute before I did. What's going on, Kelly? Myri questioned with an even sterner tone. Oh, it's nothing, Mom. I just forgot. Our daughter replied, her voice confused and sheepish through the speaker. I just want to remind you, her mother said sharply, you only have one father, and it's not Dan. We'll discuss this further later, young lady, she promised, concluding the conversation decisively and ending the call clearly. Upset, Miranda turned off the phone and pushed it away. So why don't you have Luke's number? She pressed again. FYI, Dan made sure the boy had a new phone and Memorized his number within hours of his old phone being stolen. If only I had known. I shrugged. Listen, don't be too strict with the children. Apparently, their love and affection for me vanished. After just over a year, I said, smiling darkly as I intertwined my fingers tight. Ellie, you heard your daughter. She's happy that she'll now have a new father. You know the old saying, out of sight, out of mind. Well, apparently for Kelly, I'm already a non-entity. Pointing to my long list of calls on my phone, I continued, as you can see, I no longer have anything to do with the children, and as far as I know, in 3 weeks I'll be officially replaced by the real dad. The truth in my comments seemed to hurt her, but it needed to be said. Since you left, I've probably talked to them for no more than an hour. Despite my efforts, God, I really tried, I said bitterly, remembering a typical moment when I got tickets to the Braves game on opening day of the season. I was so excited, but when I called Luke with the news, he said he was too busy to have fun. Sighing, I looked up at Mary's frozen figure opposite me. Later, I found out he and Dan went to that very game, buying tickets at the last minute. Well, if that's what they want, I can't force them to choose. Otherwise, we fell silent for a moment, lost in our thoughts, before Mary changed the subject with a quiet cough. So you're moving out of here to be closer to your parents? I asked. Not exactly, she replied. I have to leave so I can look after my mother now. She needs constant care and attention. Oh my God, did something happen to her? How does your father deal with this? You never mentioned any problems before, I said, concern evident in my voice. Well, at least Mary really cared about my parents. I thought to myself, Mom has advanced Alzheimer's disease, she said solemnly. It's pretty bad because she hardly remembers anything 90% of the time. And as for Dad, we buried him just over 3 weeks ago. The hospital said it was a heart attack, but personally I think he died from a broken heart, suffering too much from disappointment and pain. Oh no, my ex-wife sobbed, bursting into tears. How do you know it was a broken heart, and why didn't you call us? Of course I called, I objected wearily, and to be honest, that was the last time I talked to Kelly. It was the day after Thanksgiving. That's when I found out Luke had a new number, and our conversation with Kelly lasted no more than a minute. She hastily blurted out that she was incredibly busy and would call me back soon. It's a pity she never did, neither that day nor a week later. I called her every day for a couple of weeks until I finally understood the reason. It's ironic that my kids blocked me on Facebook, but not my dad, I said sarcastically. I later found out that when Kelly told me she was very busy, it was because she was going to the Black Friday sale that day with you and Grandma Roberts. As for how I can know that my father died of a broken heart, that's easy. I never told my parents about our divorce. Yes, I was going to do it sooner or later, but I never could. I admitted, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. Brushing them away, I took a deep breath and continued. When you left, I went to them the next weekend to talk about what happened between us face to face. When I got there, I discovered how bad my mother's condition had become. Dad had told me before how forgetful she was sometimes, but since I last saw them the Christmas before last, her condition had seriously deteriorated. You obviously never knew about this because not once in the last 3 years have you been able to go with me to their place. When I took the children there, I couldn't resist directly hinting at those compelling reasons that, as we both know well now, prevented Marie from accompanying me and the children every time because of my mother's illness. I didn't have the right to bring this news to both of them then, and every week it became more and more difficult to do this after Thanksgiving dinner. Once we had settled Mom for the night, Dad began pressing me with questions. It had been over a year since he'd heard from you or the kids, so reluctantly I told him the truth about our split and your departure. Myri, tense as a boring SAT, across from me, elbows sharp on the table, hands covering her mouth. Tears glistened in her eyes, and her trembling eyelashes were the only signs of life on her pale face. The next morning I found Dad in his favorite chair, clutching our family photos, still damp from his tears. Our divorce broke his heart. Mary, Mom, and Dad were married for 52 years. He was old-fashioned and had hoped we'd be together until end of life parted us. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I recounted that dark day. Rising abruptly, I turned to the window, staring at the pale blue sky dotted with rare clouds. Mary sniffled and quiet sobs echoed behind me, leaning my throbbing forehead against the cool glass. A minute later I spoke softly again. It was at the funeral that I truly felt the weight of my loneliness. Only a few neighbors and the chaplain attended Dad's farewell. Nobody else came. I couldn't even bring Mom because she wouldn't understand what was happening. It was only a week or two after the funeral, once Mom had recovered somewhat, that I mustered the courage to tell her that Dad was gone. But it pains her every time she's reminded of it, so now when she asks, I just tell her he stepped up for a while and will be back soon. Marie openly wept, but my tears had dried up long ago. I had been utterly devastated emotionally in the preceding weeks. My gaze wandered aimlessly around the room until it landed on the solitary greeting card on the mantelpiece. Marie, with her tear-stray eyes, followed my gaze and evidently noted what had caught my attention. I continued, speaking in the same detached, distant tone. You know, maybe I'm alone now, and even my own mother fails to recognize me, but I owe her a debt for bringing me into this world. So yes, I'm packing up here to be there for her for however long she has left. Turning to my ex-wife, I straightened up, crossing my arms over my chest. A bitter, sarcastic grimace colored my final words to the woman I had loved deeply during our years together. Isn't it incredible, the fallout from your actions and how many lives it affected? You shattered our marriage, you severed my bond with my children, and to top it off, you tore apart my family. I concluded my speech, unable to contain the anger and accusatory tone I had vowed not to reveal, but it poured out nonetheless. Don't you dare blame me for all of this. Miranda shot back, rising from her seat. Unlike you, Dan is committed to me, and let's not forget that you replaced me with Sandy Thompson, she added, her face flushing as she pointed an accusatory finger at me. Her accusation caught me off guard, and instead of a defensive response, I burst into laughter, tears streaming down my cheeks. Absolutely, I replied, barely catching my breath. Leighton, not overlook Sandy Thompson, the reason you spent over 15 years meticulously plotting your revenge. I vividly recall that evening when you sternly warned me never to mention her name in this house, threatening to take the children and leave me forever if I did. My ex-wife raised her chin arrogantly, crossing her arms over her chest in defiance, her gaze fixed firmly on me. Well, Mary, now that you followed through on all your threats, I believe that ship has sailed, but I still want to make one thing clear once and for all. I never laid a finger on Sandy Thompson, I declared emphatically, feeling a surge of relief as the words left my lips meeting Miranda's widened. Eyes filled with shock and confusion, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as I continued in a calmer tone. When I woke up in her bed that morning, I was still dressed in the same tuxedo from the night before. Nothing happened between us. Do you really expect me to believe this? Fairy tale, Mari retorted, dripping with poisonous sarcasm. Yes, I do expect you to believe me, I replied firmly. I've never lied to you before, and I certainly have no reason to start now, especially when everything between us has long been over. I added, regaining my composure. I don't care, she snapped, dismissively, sounding more like Kelly than the woman I once knew. For some reason, her indifferent response irked me, although I could tell she didn't believe me. It was oddly important to me that she did. I grabbed my phone and dialed my old office, motioning for Miranda to stay put and not interrupt. After just a couple of rings, Jane, the receptionist, answered promptly. Hey Jane, it's Alan Dow. Oh, hi Alan, have you finished sorting everything out? My old friend replied cheerfully, likely gearing up for a big move. It'll be strange around here without you, she sighed with regret. Yeah, everything's already packed. I just wanted to chat with my old pal one last time before hitting the road. Listen, I'm trying to get in touch with a colleague at the Little Rock office. I'm not even sure if she's still there, so I was wondering if you could check the system and see if Sandy Thompson is still around. Sure thing, Alan, hang on a sec, Jane responded promptly, and for a few moments the only sound on the line was the rapid clicking of keys. After a brief pause, she came back on. Yep, she's still with us at the same branch in Little Rock. Do you want her number, or should I patch you through directly? Oh, thanks a bunch for your help. Just put me through to her line. And Jane, sweetheart, take care of yourself, and if Paul ever decides to put a ring on it, I expect an invite. I joked. Absolutely, Alan. Jane giggled. And don't forget about us either. Okay, well, patch me through now, thanks Jane, I said, ready to talk. As Mui listened in on our casual chat, her brow furrowed, but her gaze remained fixed on me. Hello, S is on the line, a voice I hadn't heard in years announced. Hi, Sandy. It's Alan Dow from the Grenville office. I'm not sure if you remember me. Good Lord, Alan Dow, how could I forget? I've been dreaming of you for years, the man I wanted but never got, and now you're calling me out of the blue. Sandy exclaimed, laughing. So how the hell have you been? She asked without pausing for an answer. It's like telepathy, because believe it or not, I was just thinking about you recently. It's been, what, 16 years since we last spoke at that gala reception where we first met. Remember, we bumped into each other at a few other events afterward, but never got a chance to catch up properly. But you know how hectic those crowded gatherings, important meetings, and all the other fuss can be. Of course, I remember our first encounter in Washington. I interjected. Actually, it's been 17 years. I corrected with a chuckle, though. Besides the award ceremony itself, that night's a bit of a blur for me. Oh, Alan, you were right that evening. Sandy reminisced, her voice filled with laughter. What do you remember? She asked, still chuckling. Well, after my clumsy thank you speech, I remember leaving the stage, and then I think we were still sipping champagne at the table, but after that it's all a bit fuzzy. It was probably the first and last time I got that drunk, I admitted, feeling a bit embarrassed as his hearty laughter echoed through the phone. Oh, you were quite the character by the end of the night, though. Honestly, compared to some others, you didn't drink that much, she teased. Well, If you want honesty, Alan, I'll give it to you straight, she continued, her voice Sligo on Miss Thompson, lay it on me, I replied, ready for her frankness. It's quite amusing, I chimed in with my former colleague. I have to confess I had my eye on you that evening, even though I knew I had some serious competition from all the single ladies gathered there. Oh, absolutely, Sandy chuckled. You were like a tall, dark, handsome magnet, drawing all the attention. It was like watching bees buzzing around a pot of honey size. Infectious laughter made me join in, though I couldn't help but sneak a glance at Mary, who listened to sighs, reminiscences with pursed lips, her expression turning sour when Sandy mentioned dragging me onto the dance floor. Then quite accidentally, I swear, I placed my hand up below and felt how firm and substantial you were, Sandy continued, laughing. PHW, things were heating up, weren't they? Ha, yeah, I nearly killed over from that, I chuckled. Although being called Mary all evening was a bit awkward, it did show me how devoted you were to your wife. By around 11 you were muttering "Myrie dear" again, and then simply passed out in your chair. When the party wrapped up after midnight and everyone retired to their rooms, you were still there in the hallway, so I enlisted the help of the night porter to get you to bed, Sandy recounted. I certainly didn't recall all of that, I remarked, listening intently to S's account of that pivotal night, which marked the beginning of the end for Miranda and me. The tricky part was no one knew which room you were assigned, and the hotel computers were offline for a scheduled update or something. I didn't delve too deeply into it. Long story short, the only logical solution at the time was to bring to my room, and let me tell you, it was no easy feat moving a guy your size, especially when you were barely conscious, Sandy explained with a pause on the line. There was some rustling on the other end of the line. Then Sandy spoke again. Sorry about that. I took a couple of sips of water. All these memories have made me a bit feverish and parched, she confessed with a laugh. So where did I leave off? Right there. Well, I have to confess, at that moment I was feeling a bit mischievous, she admitted, her voice tinged with embarrassment. I mentioned earlier how I accidentally felt your manhood when the receptionist and I were maneuvering you onto the bed. It was just a fleeting touch, but I immediately realized that you were not only tall but also quite well endowed, if you catch my drift. She chuckled nervously into the phone. Unfortunately, you nearly passed out as we were getting you into the room, and then you just collapsed on the bed, muttering something unintelligible. Even though I was tempted, Sandy sighed. I couldn't bring myself to do anything with someone who was practically unconscious. It just seemed wrong and against my principles. Nevertheless, I was a bit tipsy myself that night and feeling rather well aroused, so I decided to undress and lie down next to you, hoping that when you woke up and saw me, it might spark something between us. She sighed involuntarily once more, but clearly my little ploy didn't work, because when I woke up in the morning, you were already gone, and despite my inquiries, no one had seen you for the rest of the weekend. So all I can say, Alan, is that your wife must be a very fortunate woman. Marie, her eyes widening in shock, covered her mouth with both hands as the gravity of her actions hit her like a thunderbolt. I must admit, at that moment I felt no sympathy for my ex-wife, as her own rash decisions and arrogance were the root cause of our marriage's downfall. The subsequent calculated planning and years of scheming aimed solely at getting Revenge on me only served to reinforce this belief. It was clear to me that I never truly knew the real Myrie O about. That I replied, now she's my ex-wife, and if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have taken you up on that tempting offer. I chuckled, answering. Sandy, she laughed heartily. Well, honey, you're about 7 years too late if you were hoping to rekindle our connection. Now I'm a very happily married woman with 2 wonderful children. I still use the last name Tom Thon at the office because all my clients know it and are accustomed to it. Actually, officially, I'm Sandy Roberts. I met Robert 8 years ago, and he was the first person after you who managed to find a way to my heart, she said with a touch of sentiment. A crease formed on Mary's tense forehead as she gripped the edges of the table, her face contorting into a pained grimace. She stared fixedly at the phone on the table as if it were a coiled viper ready to strike. Observing Miranda's reaction, I was perplexed as I couldn't quite grasp its significance. By the way, it's because of Rob that I thought about you, buddy. Isn't that strange? She laughed. Well, the thing is, his older brother Dan is getting married in a couple of weeks, and his fiancée, named Andy like you, has the last name Dow, so I wondered if she was your relative because you're the only person named Dow among the people I know. Now I understood Mary's reaction. I can't say that's so. Among my relatives there's no one named Andy, I said with a hint of irony, glancing at Mary. Although come to think of it, I remember the only relative I knew with such a name was still in high school. It's been so long that I almost forgot about it. I grinned, looking pointedly at Miranda, who blushed and looked away, lips pursed in embarrassment. I really didn't know the real her anymore, but no one would mistake Andy for a guy now. She's gorgeous. She has amazing children, Kelly and Luke, who are now in college. Kelly and Dan's daughter, Cassie, are best friends and share a room in Florida. They were both bridesmaids in my wedding, and Luke was Rob's usher. He did a great job preparing the ceremony and entertaining the guests. I reminisced. Yes, a great guy, let me tell you. His last words made me ponder as I mechanically assent to her. Her tone grew more serious, and she began speaking more quietly. Actually, Alan, to be honest, I don't think they should get married, because even if they go through with it, their marriage is doomed from the start. I was surprised. Why do you think so? What could stop them, since they've been together for so long? Myrie, being directly involved, was even more astonished than I was. Her eyebrows shot up, mouth agape, as she leaned forward tensely. Lord Alan, because they're both serial cheaters. I mean, Dan also cheated on his first wife, Lisa, with Andy. I don't know how or why he did it, much less why he did it. Lisa, I assure you, was also stunning, although I never actually met her. I saw her photographs. Anyway, Andy and I had a frank conversation about this one day, and she told me that her husband and children understand that she has a husband at work and a husband at home. She explained how she divided her time between the two of them, while her husband at home had a similar arrangement with a woman he worked with. Can you imagine such a relationship? Yeah, I muttered, unsuccessfully trying to catch Miranda's stubbornly elusive gaze as she avoided looking into my eyes. Her cheeks, neck, and even part of her chest were flushed a deep shade of red, matching the intensity of her embarrassment. I made it clear to Rob that I would not hesitate to confront him if he ever entertained such thoughts. Sandy shared her firm stance on this matter with confident resolve, then casually dropped A bombshell unwittingly targeting my ex. Well, Dan still has someone on his side. Despite his relationship with Andy, that seems to be his modus operandi, I believe. This dog always has a backup plan. She snorted. His current girlfriend's name is Tilly, and he sees her every time he's in Chicago, according to what Rob told me. Apparently he arranges these business trips specifically to visit her every couple of weeks, observing Mir's reaction. I noticed her complexion shift from bright red to first pale, then even a hint of green leaning on the table. She silently struggled for air, seeming on the brink of vomiting right then and there. Sandy continued to enthusiastically relay the latest updates from my former inner circle. Damn, I doubt they would have tied the knot if his bosses hadn't insisted he marry Andy after her ex sued the company following their divorce. Can you believe it, Alan? Her husband at home had a completely different take on their relationship and wouldn't tolerate the chaos. Some men still have integrity. Her Rob confided that the company had to cough up a hefty sum to settle the matter. 100 grand. Just great, I thought to myself, and on top of that they gave Dan an ultimatum. He has to clean up the mess or they'll kick him out. What do you think? Not exactly the ideal foundation for starting a life together, is it? Continue cheating on your bride while staring down the barrel of a loaded weapon. Myri sprang up, knocking over a chair as she stumbled into the bathroom, where seconds later I heard her retching. I couldn't blame her. After today's revelations, her carefully constructed world had been shattered and literally flushed down the drain. The Dan she believed to be honest, loving, and faithful turned out to be a fraud, but thankfully that was no longer my concern. I conversed with Sandy for a few more minutes, during which she affectionately shared stories about her children and inquired about my plans. I informed her that based on my former company's recommendation, I was applying for a position at an insurance branch near my mother's house instead of the usual insurance sales. The job involved investigating suspicious insurance cases, an intriguing and fresh challenge for me. While the pay wouldn't match my previous earnings, it would still comfortably meet my needs. Additionally, the new role came with a personal office and assistant, signaling a positive step forward in my career. As Miranda returned visibly exhausted, I concluded my talk with Sandy, exchanging contact details and pledging to stay in touch occasionally. After bidding farewell to Sandy and ending the call, I turned to Marie. My ex-wife appeared visibly distressed, her face damp, pale, and forlorn, with most of her meticulously applied makeup smudged or washed away in just 15 minutes. Miranda seemed to have aged years before my eyes. You look exhausted, I remarked sympathetically as she slumped into a chair, burying her head in her arms. This time her distress felt genuine. I am Alan, I really am, she murmured, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Listen, I'm pressed for time. I need to pursue a lead while it's still fresh. By morning I should be in Brunswick, I replied, glancing at my watch briefly. The drive from here to Brunswick typically took about 6 hours without breaks, but I anticipated making a couple of stops along the way. All these boxes are yours. They contain all the clothes, photographs, and other stuff you left. I gestured towards the packages piled up in the corridor near the entrance. I plan to send them to you next week, but since you're here, I can help by loading them into your car if you'd like, I offered in a composed tone, guided by the enduring politeness instilled in me by my upbringing. Actually, can I ask you a big Favor, she murmured softly, lacking the courage to meet my gaze. Can I stay here for the night? I don't think I could go back home there right now, I pondered. For a moment, idly playing with a set of keys on my finger before selecting a couple and placing them on the table in front of her. Why not? Here are your keys, and you have my permission. Stay, but when you leave, you'll need to drop them off at the real estate office. Consider yourself warned, I informed Mary. New tenants are arriving on Monday, so you have a full 9 days here if you need them. This Sunday, some people will come to help me get rid of unnecessary items and clean the apartment. Utilities will be operational until Monday. Finally, I scanned the room once more and mentally chided myself. Approaching the mantelpiece, I retrieved a greeting card left behind by my thoughtful former colleagues from my previous job and my new abode. Their genuine warmth and kindness will continue to uplift me now. All that's left is to bid a final farewell to my ex. All right, it's all done. Take care, Mary. The first really must be off. Goodbye. I hope we never cross paths again. As I exited, I cast one last glance at the woman I once loved wholeheartedly. All that lingers in my mind is the image of a broken figure, shoulders slumped at the table, overcome with painful sobs. Music. Applause. Music. Applause. Music.